So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Sent into X-Men Universe. This is second part of the series, so let's start the series. After the adventure in Canada with Wolverine and the destruction of the Weapon X facility, life at the Institute got back to normal. Well, as normal as life at the Institute can get. Everyone got back into their normal grooves. Scott and Jean continued to boss everyone around and their somewhat relationship was continuing. Kurt and Evan continued to goof off and Kitty and Rogue pretty much stayed the same. Logan was better after Professor X removed the chip from his brain and would help Logan run down any other leads he needed. For Naruto, well, things were getting awesome. Kurama and Professor X spoke to Naruto and said that with Naruto's powers continuing to grow, he would get more powerful. Professor X was able to look into Naruto's mind and see the various kinds of jutsus and bloodlines that Kurama and Naruto knew of, and theoretically, Naruto could use those abilities as well. Since Naruto's mutant power was to manipulate and control energy, he could in fact control all kinds of energy including gravitational and magnetic. Granted, this was a theory since Professor X was still trying to get a grasp over Naruto's powers, but as soon as Naruto heard this he went off training. Naruto went off training, trying to duplicate some Kekkei Genkai, such as lava and crystal release, but that was easier said than done. When he first tried, he blew up part of the danger room, which Professor Xavier was not happy about. So while the danger room was being fixed, Naruto took a break from training. Naruto was doing his physics homework one day when Kurama got an idea. Hey Kit, remember when you tried out the lava bloodline and you blew up the danger room? Kurama asked. Like it was a week ago, what about it? Naruto asked. What if we have been going about your new training all wrong? Kurama said. What do you mean? Naruto asked. Well, when we first trained with your powers, we used our knowledge of the jutsus we saw, such as your Rasengan, and since your elemental manipulation came to you so easily, the training moved much faster, Kurama said. Where are you going with this? Naruto asked. I think the reason we've been having so much trouble with trying out the bloodlines is because you and I never have seen or understood those powers, except for Haku's Ice bloodline and Nagato's Rinnegan. We have no knowledge of the other bloodlines. The only reason the people who have the bloodlines are so efficient is because they know everything about how to use it, Kurama said. So how do we fix that? Naruto asked. Well, since we can't go home and I only have basic knowledge of those bloodlines and no one else can tell us, I think it's time we use your homework to help us, Kurama said. My homework? How can physics help us? Naruto asked. My god, your friends were right, you are an idiot, Kurama said as he shook his head. Hey! Naruto said. What I mean is that we learn a basic understanding of the elements, like using your physics books to learn about magnetic fields or gravity. The training will be a lot easier, Kurama said. I don't follow, Naruto said as Kurama hit his head with his paw. If you learn the basic understands of something, say magnetic fields, you will know how to channel your energy, and it will make training your new powers much easier, Kurama said. Oh, so if we learn more about the workings of magnetic forces, I'll know how to train my powers, said. Finally, Kurama said. Alright, that may work, but that means doing one thing, Naruto said. What? Kurama asked. Research, Naruto said with a depressed tone, not wanting to read more. Line break XXXXX. After a week of studying and going to the mansion's library to study on gravity and gravitational fields, Naruto was able to get a basic understanding of gravity. Now granted, Naruto wasn't a physics expert, but he was able to get a basic understanding. Now gravity was still a phenomenon that was being studied by scientists, but the theories and ideas posted about gravity gave him a basis to start with. Gravity. According to Newton's universal law of gravitation, gravitational force between two bodies of mass is directly proportional to their masses and the distance between them. Now that he understood the attraction between bodies of mass that resulted in gravity, Naruto would start off simple, trying to increase his gravity. Naruto was standing outside in the backyard. Since the danger room was still being fixed, Hunter sat a few feet away, wagging his tail as he watched Naruto, standing in the middle of a field, slowing his breathing and preparing himself. Okay, relax, breathe and feel the energy around me, Naruto said as he sat on the grass and meditated. He slowed his breathing as concentrated on the energy around him. He immediately felt the energy from Hunter and from nature, but was trying to focus on something even smaller. After about 10 minutes of meditating, he didn't feel any different, but after another minute, he began to feel a new faint energy signature. It was very erratic to everything he felt. The tree's energy signature was far different than Hunter, who was still sitting far away. He then heard a branch fall and felt a new energy signature appear as the branch fell to the ground. Naruto opened his eyes and smiled as he felt the gravitational field around him. Now the problem was how to try and use it. Naruto then remembers a small passage on gravitons. Apparently in the quantum field theory, there were hypothetical particles known as gravitons that mediate the force of gravitation. Now granted, this was a theory, but it was worth a shot. If he could control energy, he could control gravitons, which would make things heavier or lighter. Naruto now focused on the branch and tried to manipulate the gravitational energy to increase the weight. Naruto reached his hand out and pointed it at the branch and concentrated. Naruto's hand turned blue as he concentrated on the graviton energy signature. His hand turned from blue to gray as the branch's weight started to increase and it started to push deeper into the ground. Naruto smiled as he started to get the hang of it. He then decided to do the opposite and make it light as a feather, and after a few seconds the branch's weight and gravitational energy made the branch like a leaf and it blew away in the wind. Naruto smiled as he saw Hunter and reached his hand out and used the gravity energy to bring Hunter to him like Nagatos could manipulate attractive forces. Hunter literally was floating in the air and moved over to Naruto. "Alright, I got a new power," Naruto said in joy as he then tried to use his gravity powers to fly, and it worked for a few seconds until he was sent flying and smashed into a tree and destroyed it. Naruto groaned as he got up from the branches and wood from the destroyed tree he flew into. On second thought, maybe I should do more training. Ha 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 ha, oh my god. My ribs are hurting, Kurama said as he laughed at Naruto. Stupid fox, Naruto said. Line break XXXXX. After the discovery of his new power of gravity control and the unfortunate incident where he flew into the tree, Naruto continued training his new powers and he was getting pretty good at it. He was now able to levitate himself and fly without falling or flying into a tree, and he was getting pretty good at density enlargement and shrinking, and the most fun was the gravity attraction power. He was able to push and pull objects like Pain did using gravity. He was even able to create a small gravity energy ball that when used could be very dangerous, but he was still working on it. As of right now, Naruto was training on his magnetic energy powers. This was a little easier because of how magnetism works. He moved a lot faster. Granted, he really only had the basics down, like moving metal plates or small objects, and that's about it. But right now Naruto and the rest of the gang were wrapping up a Friday at school and preparing for the weekend. Scott and Jean were the first to leave and the first to arrive back at the mansion. Scott drove through the gate and parked outside. As he got out and ran inside. "Oh yeah, let the weekend begin, woohoo!" Scott yelled as he ran inside. "Wait! You're forgetting your homework," Jean told him, but he was already inside. "Ha, make that ignoring it," Jean said as she then heard a rustle in the trees. "Hello?" Jean said as she saw someone leap from the tree to the bushes. "Kitty, are you climbing trees again?" she asked as she looked through the bushes and saw the figure dash away. "Evan, is that you?" she called out as she tried to follow the figure. Jean then used her powers to remove the bush in front of the figure to reveal Toad. "Huh, oh so that's the way you want to play, huh?" Toad asked as he jumped forward and over her and grabbed a branch from a tree. "Toad, what are you doing?" she asked as Toad used the branch to sweep her feet out from under her. "Getting the jump on the competition. Yo ha, you want some of this?" Toad said as he swung the branch, but Jean used her telekinesis to catch it. "Toad, what are you trying to prove?" she asked as she pushed him back. "That I'm a champ, not a chump, yo, and guess what? We all got to prove it," Toad said as he was going to swing again. "Would you knock it off?" Jean yelled, broke the branch with her powers. "Can't throw a toad away." Toad yelled as he jumped at her, but she caught him and hurled him into a nearby well. "Toad!" Jean called out, but she was distracted when she heard and turned to see a giant metal sphere approaching her. It landed next to her and opened up as she got closer to look at it. Then metal tentacles shot out and grabbed her and pulled her into the sphere, which then closed up and flew away. Toad got out of the well to see Jean get taken, and oh, it wasn't over. I could have still won. It should have been me, me! Toad yelled as the sphere left. Line break XXXXX. In Hawaii, one young surfer out catching waves and loving it, then two friends came by. "Alex! I can't seem him," he said. "There he is, lounging the bum. Want to paddle out there?" he asked. "Nah, he looks like he just wants to be alone. We'll catch up with him later," he said as the two left. Alex was on his board, lounging in the water as he relaxed. Unknown to him that he was about to be lunch, his board rocked and shook a little. He leaned up to see what was going on but was soon knocked off his board and fell into the water. He then saw a shark fin and quickly tried to climb back onto his board but lost his grip and fell back into the water. The shark then swam right at him with its jaw wide open and Alex put his hands out, afraid, but then his hands turned red and blasted the shark in the face with plasma energy. The shark was hurt but undeterred. It swam away and quickly turned around and swam straight for Alex again. Alex was confused at what just happened, but when he saw the shark swimming at him again, he had to try his powers. He concentrated, and when the shark was close he blasted it with a fully powered plasma blast, and the shark fell to the bottom of the sea, dead. Alex then swam to the surface and tried to catch his breath as his hands continued to glow red and burn. Back at the institute, Logan walked into the newly finished and revamped Cerebro chambers to see Charles at the controls. "So the new Cerebro is online," Logan said. "Yes, it has pinpointed the emergence of a new mutant. Only partially developed," Charles said. "Yeah, so what's the emergency?" Logan asked. "His name is Alex Masters, once known as Alex Summers, Scott's brother," Charles said. "Brother? I thought Scott was the only one to survive that plane crash?" Logan asked. "Yes, so did I. And so did Scott. Have him meet us in the hangar. We're flying to Hawaii." "Oh, and Logan, let's be prepared for trouble. I doubt we're the only ones who have an interest in this young man," Professor X said. Back in Hawaii, Alex was able to swim to shore. He was sitting on the beach, his arms and hands still burning but not as much. "Man, what is going on with me?" Alex asked as he leaned back and laid on the sand. Then a shadow appeared over him. "I know the kind of pain you're feeling, Alex. I once had it myself," a voice said as Alex opened his eyes to see a purple-caped and red helmet-wearing man. Where did you come from?" Alex asked. "I just arrived to see you, because I know, you don't know nothing, man, just back off," Alex interrupted him and walked away. "Creep. Your bones, they burn, your hands ache, the pressure in your head, I can give you relief and answers, you never have to feel pain again," the figure said. "You some kind of doctor?" Alex asked. "No, Alex, I am Magneto, and I have come to offer you sanctuary," Magneto said as he floated up and held his hand out to Alex. Back with the X-Men, Logan was preparing the X-Jet and heard Scott talking to Professor X. "What?" "My little brother, he's alive, Scott. Alex is alive," Professor X said. "Oh man, I thought he was gone, or I would have been out there looking for him. I should have been looking for him. I mean, I just accepted. Why didn't I?" "Easy, Scott, take a breath, don't blame yourself," Professor X said to calm him down. "But all this time, where's he been?" Scott asked. "Well, as far as I can determine, living with foster parents in Hawaii," Professor X said. "Then come on, let's go," Scott said as he ran into the jet and Professor X followed. The X-Jet engines then turned off and flew out of the hangar as Kitty, Rogue, Evan, Kurt and Naruto ran into the hangar to see what the noise was about. "Hey, what's the deal? I thought we were Hawaii bound," Evan asked. "Oh man!" Kurt exclaimed. "We got totally ditched," Rogue said. "Hey, you can't blame Scott, meeting a brother he hasn't seen in like 10 years. I wouldn't want a crowd either." "No way," Kitty said. "Hey, I'm thinking Hawaii, not the only beaches in the world, right?" Kurt asked. "I hear you, Kurt, road trip," Naruto yelled in excitement. Everyone went to change and grabbed some beach gear. Naruto wore some red and orange shorts and blue t-shirt. He had a bag with his swim shorts and quickly got in the X-van and pulled out front. The others got in as Naruto pulled down the roof. Rogue then came running by. "Hustle it up, Rogue, before Andy O shows up and dry docks our plan," Evan said as Rogue entered the van. "I couldn't find Jean, so I left her a note," Rogue said. "All right, buckle up, beach here we come," Naruto said as they drove away. As they left the institute, a cat walked by and quickly changed into Mystique. She smiled and then pulled out a walkie-talkie. "Change of plans? They're on the move," she said. "Not for long," Avalanche said back. "Line break XXXXX. The X-Jet flew to Hawaii and parked at an abandoned beach. You see anything?" Scott asked. "No, and the tide's coming in. This whole cove will be underwater in an hour," Logan said. "Take a closer look around," Professor X told them both. They looked around the beach and Scott found a surfboard that washed up. "You think it's his?" Scott asked. "Maybe," Logan said as he saw something. He saw 2 pairs of footprints on the beach that led from the water to inland while one pair just stopped. "Looks like company dropped in on him, literally," and left the same way. What kind of company? Scott asked. Magneto, Logan said. Who? Scott asked as Logan just looked around. Logan, who's Magneto? I got a feeling you're about to find out, Logan said. Professor X was in the jet, trying to use his telepathy to find Alex and Magneto. I know you're here, Magneto. I can sense it. Show yourself. Then the jet began to shake violently and soon began to levitate off the ground. Scott and Logan saw the jet levitate off the ground as Logan growled. It's him, Logan said as the jet was leaving and Logan ran after it. He then jumped and grabbed onto one of the wheels and held on tight as the jet levitated away. Scott was confused at what just happened, but then he saw a figure on a rock. Alex? Is it really you, Scott? Scott! Alex yelled as the two brothers ran and hugged each other. Man, I still can't believe it. When Magneto told me you were showing up, Whoa, wait, Magneto, you're with him? That guy just kidnapped my professor, Scott said. No, you got it wrong. He told me all about it. He just want to show him something. Come here for a sec, Alex said as Scott followed. He wants to show all of us. All? Scott asked. Yeah, you know mutants, he told me you were one. And guess what, so am I. See, check this out, Alex said as his hands glowed red. I couldn't believe it. I got these powers growing inside of me. Man, I was freaked until Magneto clued me in. He's great, Scott. He wants to meet with us. That's all, I'm going. I mean, how could I not, but you got to come too. Okay, Alex said as he led Scott to a giant metal sphere with the top part open. That thing there? It will take us to Magneto? Scott asked. Yeah, come on. It's kind of scary, you know, but exciting, please? Alex said. This just doesn't smell right, Alex. But I'll go, just to keep an eye on you, and to find Professor X, Scott said. They both got into the sphere and it closed and took them someplace else. Meanwhile, back with Professor X and Logan, the X-Jet was still being pulled by Magneto as Logan held on for dear life. As he climbed up the wing and the body of the jet, Professor X was in the cockpit trying to turn on the jet and manually fly the plane, but the system wasn't responding. Charles, relax. I am in control, Magneto said. What is this about, Magneto? Professor X asked. I am simply taking steps to ensure our survival. We both know that humankind will not only learn of us, but they will fear us, for we are the future, and what man fears he tramples. So I shall be ready for them, Magneto said. Wolverine made it to the body of the plane, and used his claws to reach the cockpit. Ah yes, Wolverine, the man with the adamantium claws, Magneto said as he began to bend Wolverine's claws and hit him against the jet. Of course, adamantium is a metal, and I'm sure he must realize that I am the master of magnetism, Magneto said as he threw Wolverine off the plane and into the ocean. Line break XXXXX. Back at the Institute, Storm in her X-Men outfit walked into the mansion to find it quiet. Too quiet. Hello, anyone home? She called out. Professor? She called out as she walked, and then a cat appeared. Oh, hello, you're not quite the kitty I was expecting to see, she said as she walked forward, and then Hunter came into the room and barked. Hello, Hunter, is Naruto not here? She asked as Hunter barked again, and then growled at the cat who just sneered at Hunter. Hunter kept barking as Storm just kept walking, thinking it was just an animal thing, but soon the cat turned into Mystique and Storm saw her. Well, look what the cat dragged in, Storm said as she turned around and channeled lightning through her hands. Mystique then spun around and jump-kicked at Storm but was hit with a blast of lightning and sent across the room. Mystique then quickly recovered and then jumped and flipped over the stairs and tackled Storm to the ground. Storm then kicked Mystique off. Give up and I'll make this quick, Wind Rider. I shouldn't even have to prove myself to him, she said as she flipped through the air and jump-kicked at Storm, who moved to the side. I don't know why you have chosen to attack me, and in truth I don't much care. This is my home, and you are not welcome here, Storm said as he channeled her powers and created a fog in the mansion which she used to surprise attack Mystique and knock her out. Then a giant metal sphere burst through the ceiling and landed next to Storm. It opened up and tentacles grabbed her and pulled her inside. When Storm was inside the sphere, it left the mansion. With Naruto and the others, they were driving along the coast, soaking in the sun and good weather. Oh man, you feel that ocean breeze? I've been going into meltdown over here all covered up like this. I hate it, Rogue said as she tugged at her long-sleeve shirt. Yeah, you should try being blue and furry, it's murder, Kurt said as Naruto chuckled. Naruto then senses something bad was going to happen and looked ahead and saw the road crack open. Hang on! Naruto yelled as he swerved out of the way. Then a car hit them from behind and they turned to see Avalanche. Quicksilver and Toad, it's Lance Alvez and his buddies, Kitty yelled. Avalanche then cracked the road, causing the road to shake, but Naruto used his powers to create a solid ground to drive on. Hang on! Evan, slow them down, Naruto said. Right, Evan said as he shot some spikes Lance's jeep and they backed off a little bit. Now Avalanche! Quicksilver said. Avalanche then caused some rocks to fall off from one of the cliffs near the road, which caused Naruto to veer off the road onto a dirt path. Then Naruto tried to stop the car as the blob appeared and stopped the van in its tracks. Come here often, the blob said as the rest of the Brotherhood arrived. Let's party, Avalanche said. Blob then grabbed the car and picked it up and tossed everyone into the sand. Avalanche then created a sand pit and sucked the X-Men into it. Hey man, that didn't take too long at all, Toad said. Then they saw the sand start to swirl and moved upward, and then Naruto slowly rose up from the sand, standing on a sand pillar with sand swirling around him. Longer than you might think, Naruto said as Kurt and Rogue teleported behind the Brotherhood and tackled Avalanche and Toad. Kitty and Evan phased out of the sand and Naruto sent a sand wave at Quicksilver and Blob, who moved out of the way. Time to prove yourself. Remember, leave the blonde one alone, Quicksilver said to Blob as he super sped away and tackled Evan. Blob then jumped in the air and body slammed Kitty into the sand. Blob smiled but then saw Kitty phase through, looking groggy. Yuck, Blob, now I totally need to shower now, Kitty said before she passed out. Naruto then sent a sand wave at Blob, which sent him flying into the broken X-Van. Kurt was fighting Avalanche and when Kurt teleported onto a rock column, Avalanche used this to his advantage and caused it to collapse with Kurt under some rubble. Evan was fighting Quicksilver, who was currently running around Evan. Evan tried shooting some spikes at Quicksilver, but he was moving too fast. Quicksilver then ran around Evan so fast he created a mini sand tornado, and when he stopped, Evan was trapped in a sand prison. Rogue was fighting Toad, which was very easy because Toad shot out his tongue, but it was aimed at the door of the X-Van. Rogue then shut the door hard and Toad was yanked from the air and hit the van and was knocked out. Can't say I would want your slimy thoughts in my head, Toad, but I'm dropping you right here, Rogue said as she took off a glove, but Avalanche stopped her. Relax, Rogue, it's over, Lance said. And here comes your reward, Blob said as 4 metal spheres arrived and took them 4 away. Rogue! Naruto shouted as he was about to use his powers to stop them, but then saw 2 more metal spheres appear and land next to Naruto. One shot out tentacles at Naruto and grabbed him. Naruto struggled and concentrated enough energy to break free and blast the sphere in 2, but before he could blast the other, a tentacle shot out and injected Naruto with a toxin. Naruto began to wobble. His vision blurred and soon he passed out. The sphere then captured Naruto and took him away. Line break XXXXX. Logan swam back to the island to find Sabretooth waiting for him. Magneto pulled the X-Jet to his fortress in the sky. A giant rock floating in the sky with buildings built into the rock itself. What is this place? Professor X asked as the jet landed on the giant rock. Welcome, Charles, to Sanctuary, Asteroid M, Magneto said as Professor X arrived. Magneto then used his powers on Professor X's chair and pulled him up to the platform that he was on. What is all of this about? Charles asked. A rebirth. Your X-Men face a trial by fire, as do my own. Recruits, mutant pitted against mutant. One shall lose, one shall win. Only those who emerge victorious may take their place on Asteroid M. Once gathered here in this place of solitude, they can then fully realize their mutant abilities, safe from those who might mistreat them, Magneto said. Magnus, don't do this. We can introduce ourselves to mankind as friends, not enemies, Charles said. You are an idealist, Charles. I am a realist. It's a dark future that rushed toward us, and we must face it prepared, Magneto said as he walked into the main facility of Asteroid M and pulled Charles with him. The gathering is almost complete, just Wolverine and Sabretooth to go. A storm is coming for mutant kind, Charles, and our resolve must be ironclad. Side with me, not against me. Your invitation begs the question. What happens to those who won't come willingly? Charles asked. If necessary, sometimes salvation must be force-fed, Magneto said, showing Charles that he had Jean, Storm and Rogue unconscious in tanks. Magnus, you haven't saved them, you've abducted them, Charles said. A certain amount of persuasion may still be needed, I'll admit. But for every non-believer, there is a convert, Magneto said as the doors opened to show Alex and Scott Summers. Scott, no, Charles said, as he saw his most excellent student side with Magneto. Scott, I don't understand, Charles said. Professor, wait, we're just here to listen, that's all, Scott said. What about them? Are they here to listen as well? Xavier said as Scott saw Jean, Rogue, and Storm in tanks. Hey, what is this? Scott demanded to know what was going on. Simply a precaution, Scott. Not everyone has the maturity to accept change as you do, and for some, I've had to use extreme methods to ensure cooperation, Magneto said as he used his powers to raise up a platform. Scott and Charles were shocked to see a larger tank than the others, but inside was Naruto. He was in a tank of some kind of liquid, with various chains on his body, restraining him, and a breathing mask. My God, what have you done? Charles asked as he went to Naruto. Just a precaution, I assure you. Young Naruto's powers are so advanced that traditional containment would be ineffective, Magneto said. So what, you turned him into a lab puppet? Scott asked in anger as Alex held him back. Easy, Scott, Alex said. Not at all. I will release him very soon and hopefully he will embrace my proposal as you have, Magneto said as he went up to Naruto's tank. This young man has the potential to change the world. A god among mutants, can you imagine that? With his powers, mankind could never face against us. Under my tutelage, he could lead us to an era of mutant superiority, Magneto said. No, he's just a young man. He's not ready for that kind of power, Charles said. You have stunted his growth, Charles. This young man could be a god, yet you keep him from reaching his full potential, Magneto said. Because he's not ready. None of us are, Charles said. But we are, I assure you, Scott. They are completely safe, Magneto said to Scott, trying to keep him on his side. Are they safe, Scott? Are any of us safe? I know this man well. His motives cannot be trusted. He's bitter. Professor X was telepathically communicating with Scott, and Magneto saw this, and then moved him into an empty tank. Logan, lose the battle. Magneto is... Professor X sent out a message to Logan, but the gas in the chamber knocked him unconscious. No! Scott yelled as he prepared to fire an optic blast. Do that, and he will not survive the decompression, Magneto told Scott. Yeah, well, odds aren't that great for you either, Scott warned him as Alex got between the two. Hey Scott, come on man, this is no good. They're having a little time out. So what? Look, I don't get it either. But no one should be getting hurt here. You can't blame Magneto for being careful. And all I know is that he just wants to help. And I need his help, so come on. Holster that thing, would you? Alex said as Scott calmed down a little. I don't like it, Scott said. But your brother is right, Scott. I'm not your enemy. Nor am I, Charles. Very soon you will see the truth, Magneto said. Line break XXXXX. Kitty, Evan and Kurt were able to get some information out of Toad about why Rogue and Naruto were taken. Magneto was behind the whole thing, and to the winners. They were taken someplace. They returned to the mansion to talk to Storm or Jean, but found the mansion destroyed. Oh man, what happened here? Kurt asked as he saw the destruction. Oh my gosh, Kitty said. Man, this place is trashed, Evan said. Oh man, you guys live like slobs, Toad said. He tagged along with the X-Men. Storm? Storm? Hey, are you in here? Kitty called out, but no one answered. Mystique then revealed herself, as she had transformed, and jumped down in front of the kids. She's out, can I take a message? Mystique asked. Hey, if you're still here, then that means you're a loser too, Toad said as Mystique violently grabbed his collar and pulled him to her. Don't ever call me that, she said. What are you here for, a mother? Kurt said reluctantly. Simple truth, nobody discards me, especially not Magneto, after all I've done for him. So I'm paying him a visit. We can go together or I can go alone, she said. You won't be alone, a voice said as they turned to see Logan walk through the front door. If Magneto's got our friends, then we're going after him. Good, but I know the man, so I'm calling the shots, Mystique said. Then get your own ride, X-Men, let's go, Logan said as Kurt, Evan and Kitty followed him. Oh, all right, fine, but I expect to be consulted, Mystique said as she pushed Toad to them. The X-Men quickly got changed and headed to the hangar where Logan had a surprise. Welcome to the first test flight of the XM Velocity, Logan said as he flew the helicopter out of the hangar. Back on Asteroid M, Scott was on a balcony, thinking back to the plane incident where he and Alex were separated. The plane they were on was crashing and there were only 2 parachutes, so his parents gave them to him and Alex. Scott, are you okay? Alex asked. I'm just remembering, Scott said. Yeah, still wakes me up at night, Alex said. I hit the ground pretty hard. I spent a month in a coma. The hospital said I was the only one who made it. I wanted to be there for you, Alex. Really, I did. I'm sorry, Scott said as the two talked. Back in the main facility, Naruto's tank began to shake as his eyes started to open. Where am I? I'm so tired, what happened? Rogue, and the Brotherhood, Naruto thought as he looked to see he was in a tank with some kind liquid and he was chained together. Naruto struggled and then his tank opened. The fluid drained out and he fell to the ground, still tired and confused. Then his chains began to move and he was suddenly pulled up by some force, and then saw a strange man with a purple cape and red helmet. Ah, so you have awoken, I must say. I didn't expect you to wake up for 2 more hours, the figure said as he floated forward. You are powerful. Who are you? Naruto asked, still drowsy. Where's Rogue? What have you done to her? Relax, she is safe as are you. I am not here to hurt you but to guide you. I am Magneto. I am a mutant like you, Magneto said. What's going on? Why am I so tired? Naruto asked. That fluid you were in is the same cellular paralysis fluid used on one particular mutant you may be familiar with, Kane Marco. Magneto said, you may heal fast but the paralysis fluid is still in effect. Why am I here? Naruto asked. To be reborn, mutant kind is emerging at a faster pace every day and soon mankind will turn on us. I have built this facility to help foster and train young mutants such as yourself, Magneto said. Well, if capturing and restraining your students is training, then count me out, Naruto said. I'll admit, my methods may seem extreme but the goal is right, Magneto said as he pulled Naruto to show him the radiation chamber and the tanks of the other X-Men. Charles Xavier may seem like a mentor but he is inhibiting your progress. You have powers that no other mutant could possibly have. You could change the world if you want to become a god. But Xavier would rather limit your powers while I would rather see them grow. Join with me, Naruto, and together we will see the humans tremble before the might of mutants. Naruto then saw Jean, Rogue, Storm and Professor X in tanks. He heard Magneto and he did make a good point. From what he's experienced, mankind would not welcome mutants very lightly. There would be trouble in the future. But ruling over them? That made him no better than Madara and Sasuke. Fighting and ruling over people because you think you're better than them. Kami gave Naruto a second chance to do good, and this wasn't it. Nice speech, but no thanks, Naruto said as Magneto frowned. Perhaps you will change your mind after you see your brothers embrace my methods, Magneto said as Scott and Alex walked in. I build this chamber right into the asteroid. Behold the next step in mutant evolution, Magneto said. What is it? Scott asked. A genetic enhancer. Perhaps you've heard of the legendary gems of Sidorak? They do exist, Magneto said as he held out a large ruby-colored gem, once believed to have mystical properties. These gems actually emit a very distinctive radiation. Hey, wait a minute, you mean you're going to nuke us? Alex asked. I'm going to evolve you, to finish your growth. No more pain, Alex, and no more hiding behind that visor, Scott. Your powers will be fully realized, giving you complete control, Magneto said. What about them? I want them released, Scott said, referring to the X-Men. They will, but only after you've gone through the transformation. I want them to see what I'm offering, Magneto said as he opened the vault door. And it is an offer, Scott. I won't force you to go through it. We're supposed to trust that this thing works. You go through it then, Scott said. I'm fully advanced. But why don't I provide you with a first-hand, real-life demonstration, Sabretooth? Magneto said as Sabretooth entered the vault. In a few moments, he'll emerge reborn. The vault door opened to reveal a bright purple light. Sabretooth stepped out, but he was very different. He was much larger than he was before and completely covered in fur. The then let out a large roar as the asteroid shook a little bit. Boys, it's time to reach your full potential, Magneto said. What do you think, Scott? I want to, but not without you, Alex said. Scott then nodded as the two brothers walked to the vault. And now for an appreciative audience, Magneto said as he used his powers to wake up the X-Men. Scott, no! Naruto shouted as Professor X tried to talk him out of it, but the vault door slammed shut. Too late, Charles, he's mine now, Magneto said. Naruto tried to get free but he was still tired and weak from the paralysis fluid. The vault door then opened to reveal Scott and Alex but changed. Both were taller and stronger than before and with white hair. The pain's gone, Alex said. And you shall be called Havoc, Magneto said to Alex. He then turned to Scott. Go on, Scott. Show us the color of your eyes, Magneto said as Scott took off his glasses to show his brown eyes. Another benefit to your enhancement, your minds, they are purged of useless emotions. You should have a dominant perspective of our roles on Earth. You're not teaching them, you're building an army, Naruto said. An army of the superior being, and you shall be one too, Magneto said as the proximity alarm went off. Aircraft, Sabretooth said. Really, let's see who it is, Magneto said as he opened the skylight to see a helicopter approaching. He tried to grab it using his powers but it didn't work. He tried again but the same thing, no metal. Magneto said as Charles just shrugged his shoulders. Boys, defend us, Magneto said as Alex and Scott walked out to the landing platform. Scott then charged his optic blasts and Alex charged his energy in his hands and they both fired at the helicopter. Both hit the chopper but it caused it to go flying towards the hangar. Alex and Scott ran back inside as the chopper skidded on the platform and crashed into the facility, destroying a good chunk of the main facility. Naruto was able to use his gravity powers to push Scott and Alex out of the way so they didn't get squashed but some rubble fell on them. Kitty, Kurt, Evan, Toad, Wolverine and Mystique then exited the chopper. Knock, knock, Mystique said. Mystique, you can never take no for an answer, Magneto said as she attacked him. Naruto had enough strength back to use his powers to freeze the chains and break free. He then shot a bolt of lightning at the tanks holding the others, causing them to open. Where's the X-Jet? Logan asked. Observation deck that way, Professor X pointed. Gather there, Logan said before Sabretooth punched him through a wall. Go! We got this, Naruto said as he blasted Sabretooth away with an energy blast as Wolverine charged at him. Storm, Rogue, prepare the jet, Professor X said as they left. Jean, let's get to Scott and Alex. Blob charged at Kurt but Kurt teleported behind Blob and kicked him forward, causing Blob to smack his head into the wall and fall down. Avalanche then destroyed to ground but Kitty phased Evan through and both delivered spin kicks to Avalanche, knocking him to the ground. Mystique was fighting Magneto as she flipped and jumped away as Magneto sent metal spears at her. She dodged one set as they destroyed a pillar but Magneto sent another at her but they stopped in mid-air. Magneto and Mystique turned to see Naruto levitating in the air, holding the metal spears in the air. Magneto then sent a metal column at her and knocked her away before he sent it at Naruto, who stopped it. So you have developed your powers, but you should know one thing. I am the master of magnetism, Magneto said as he threw more objects at Naruto, who was now having trouble holding them back because he wasn't as skilled with this power as Magneto. That may be true, but I'm full of surprises, Naruto said as he then sent a huge wave of gravitational energy and pushed Magneto and Mystique into the radiation vault, by accident. Evan and Rogue finished dealing with Quicksilver as the whole asteroid began to shake. Enough with the tremors, man, Blob told Avalanche. That ain't me, this rock is cracking up, Avalanche said as Naruto used his powers to create some solid ice and stone pillars to hold up the roof. We got to go. This whole place is going under, Naruto said as he blasted a path to the jet. The Brotherhood ran to the jet, and so did the rest of the X-Men. Get aboard the jet quickly, Storm said. Scott and his brother are still buried, and Wolverine's got his hands full, Rogue said. Go, I got it, Naruto said to Storm and Rogue, who reluctantly agreed and went ahead. Wolverine slashes at Sabretooth but Sabretooth barely felt a thing. Sabretooth then grabbed Wolverine by the neck and slammed him into a pillar. He roared and before he could deliver a slash, his hand was stopped. Sabretooth turned to see Naruto behind him. Sorry, Furball, but not today, Naruto said as he used his gravity powers to throw Sabretooth into the wall, causing debris to fall on top of him. Jean and Professor X were trying to get Scott out of the rubble when it was blasted away by Scott's optic blast. Scott and Alex saw the destruction of the asteroid and were shocked. You and the others, you're ruining everything. This was our chance to unite, all of us, Scott said. Unite? For what, Scott? At what cost? Look what Magneto did to you, Jean said. He's helped me. I'm evolved. No more training, no more hurdles. My powers are now at my mercy, Scott said. Yeah, so you blasted your friends with it. I mean, how united is that? She asked. You don't understand. We are the future, Alex said. Really, Scott, are you the future? Because if you are, I don't want any part of it, Jean said as she left. You're right, mutants shouldn't be divided. But we didn't draw the line, Magneto did. And it's still there, you just crossed over it, Professor X said as he left. What about the boys? Logan asked. Let them do what they must, Professor X said. Everyone got back to the jet as the asteroid was coming apart. Jean had hoped that Scott would change his mind and they did, but the platform holding the jet up collapsed as Logan had to fly the jet away. Scott and Alex fell of the asteroid as they were falling to the ground, but the brothers readied themselves and used their powers at maximum strength to slow their descent. The jet flew next to them and landed, but the asteroid was still coming down. Scott and Alex were exhausted, having used so much power, slowing their fall that they couldn't blast the rock. Kit, you may be able to blast that thing to pieces. Use that gravity ball attack, Kurama said, having woken up from his sleep when Naruto was unconscious. Right, Naruto said as he ran out of the jet as everyone wondered what he was doing. Naruto, what are you doing? Rogue asked. I got this, Naruto said as he concentrated. He gathered as much energy as he could as his body began to glow blue then gray. Wind picked up around him and the ice cracked under him as he powered up. He then began to concentrate all his gravitational energy into his hands and formed an orb about the size of a basketball. Naruto saw 2 metal spheres shoot out of the asteroid before it started to fall to the earth. Naruto then shouted, "Almighty push!" and threw the orb at the asteroid. The orb sailed through the air, and when it hit the asteroid it caused a massive explosion. Everyone shielded their eyes from the blast as it caused massive wind to fly out and bright light to fill the sky. But when the light was gone, the asteroid was destroyed. All right, Naruto said as he wobbled on his feet and fell back to have Logan catch him. Nice job, kid, Logan said as Naruto smiled. Jean then ran out of the plane to see Scott, and Alex turned back to normal. She put Scott's glasses back on so he could see. Professor, I'm sorry, I made some bad choices, Scott said. More like misinformed choices. But you learned your mistake and you two are alive, Professor X said. So much for havoc, huh? Alex said. Yeah, well, the white hair looked lousy on you anyway, Scott said. Hey, Scott, if nothing else, at least I have my brother back. And that's what really matters to me, Alex said. Yeah, me too, and I promise that nothing is going to split us up again, Scott said. With time, Alex, your powers will emerge on their own, and if you'll allow, we will be there to help you along the way, all of us, together, unified, because we are the X-Men, Professor X said. Line break XXXXX. Growing pains. After the battle at Asteroid M, Naruto and Kurama felt that things were going to get a lot more interesting in the world. Magneto was right. Mutants would soon be in the public's eye. But they would emerge as friends. After the incident, things got back to normal. The Brotherhood went back to doing what they do, but Mystique was still MIA. Alex was able to get better control over his powers thanks to Professor X, but was in Hawaii to finish school. As for Naruto, well, things were going great. He had more control over his gravity powers and magnetic powers and was working on his lava powers now. He was able to go home for a month to see the birth of his baby sister, Mito Hataki. She was the little ball of joy for the family, and Naruto adored her. She was so cute, and Kakashi and Rin couldn't be happier about their baby girl. After staying with his family for a while, and helping them get Mito settled in, he returned to the Institute for the new year. Along with the new year came a group of new mutants to the Institute. A whole bunch of young mutants that would require teaching, and boy was Professor X going to have his hands full. Right now though, Naruto, Scott, Evan, Kurt and Kitty were at school, watching Jean and the soccer team play for a shot at the state finals. The score was tied 4-4 with only about 15 seconds left on the clock. Bayville had the ball and they were pushing to the goal. Jean got past the ball and she pushed towards the goal, avoiding and maneuvering around the defenders, and then kicked the ball and scored. The X-Men went up to congratulate her as Scott wanted to talk to her. Jean, you were fantastic. Hey Jean, way to go, Duncan said as he got in front of her and they hugged. You stomped them like bugs on a sidewalk. Ha, that Duncan, he knows just what a girl wants to hear, Kitty said as Scott seethed in anger. Thanks Duncan, yeah, everyone played really well today, Jean said to Duncan. Jean, we're taking off, you riding or walking? Scott asked. Oh Scott, that's okay. Duncan is driving me home, Jean said. Yeah, hey Summers, maybe we'll even get lost along the way, Duncan said as they left. With you driving it's pretty much expected, Scott said. Hey, don't worry. With any luck Duncan will say something stupid and it's over, Naruto said. Actually scratch that. No luck, just wait, Naruto said as they chuckled. Naruto drove back to the Institute ahead of Scott and the others and was able to avoid the traffic that they were stuck in. Scott, hello? Kitty said as Scott then awoke from his daydream and saw the car fast approaching from behind and got in the next lane. Hey! What's his hurry? Kurt asked as they saw one car with a group of police cars behind. I don't know, maybe it's the 12 police cars on his tail. Just a hunch, Kitty said. Scott, Kurt and Kitty were curious about all of the commotion that was going on. They saw the car run a red light and nearly crash into a school bus, which caused the bus to stop under the overpass. The driver rode up the overpass to make his escape, but there was a police blockade, so he veered to the side but crashed into the railing. His car was on the edge of the overpass, right above the bus, and was going to fall. "Oh no!" Scott said as they got out of the car. "We've got to do something," Kurt said as Scott held him back. "No, there are too many news cameras," Scott said as the car on the overpass was tipping even more. "But what about those kids?" Kitty shouted. The car then started to fall and Scott decided to act. "Kurt," he said. "I'm on it," Kurt said as he teleported to the car and got the man out as Scott blasted the car away from the bus. Kurt then left the man on the street as police officers arrested him. Kurt then returned to Kitty and Scott, and Kitty phased them through a building to escape the area. Line break XXXXX. Back at the Institute, the new mutants were outside, hanging out, enjoying themselves and using their powers. The new mutants were a mix of interesting young men and women. One girl was able to transform into a wolf while another could turn into a living sun. Another could create multiples of himself, and there was a boy who could control ice. All in all, they were a rowdy but good-spirited bunch of kids. But they were still teenagers, and teenagers with powers were dangerous as a fight broke out which destroyed some of the land and some walls. Professor X, Logan and Naruto were watching over the new students hanging out in the front yard. "So those are the new recruits?" Logan asked. Looks like we got our hands full." "Yes, a spirited bunch, they're good kids, but I'm afraid it's going to be difficult this term to keep a lid on things, and to maintain our anonymity," Charles said as a giant fireball passed by the window. "Whoa, not to mention our building, we're definitely going to need more instructors and maybe a couple of tanks," Logan said. "Well, we won't be bored around here, that's for sure, right, Hunter?" Naruto said to Hunter, who grew to the size of a traditional wolf. Hunter barked back as Charles then turned to Naruto. "Actually, Naruto, I was hoping that you would accept a more leadership role with the team," Charles said. "A leadership role?" Naruto asked. "Yes, during the Asteroid M incident, you handled yourself very well and you were very good in leading the X-Men to safety. Scott may have some trouble now that our ranks have expanded, so we were hoping you would take up as leader when needed," Charles said. "Sure, I'd be happy to, but does this have anything to do with what Magneto said?" Naruto asked. "A little. Your powers are continuing to grow in ways that I couldn't have imagined, and I have a feeling that Magneto may be right. Mutants will be brought into the public eye one day, and I have a feeling you will play a big part in it. But I know you'll be ready for that when the time comes, so what do you say?" Charles asked. "Of course, Professor," Naruto said as Hunter happily barked. Then Storm walked into the room. "Charles, excuse me, but I think you may find this interesting," Storm said as she turned the TV on to the news channel. "Eyewitness accounts are conflicting, but all agree that the falling car was somehow deflected by this strange red flash. Its source is still a mystery," the new reporter said. "Scott," Charles said. "Well, I think you were right, Professor. Maybe mutants will emerge sooner than we thought," Naruto said. Scott and the others drove into the Institute, and parked out front as they were discussing what happened by the overpass. Maybe we shouldn't mention what happened to anyone, you think?" Kurt asked. "Well, we could just keep quiet about for a while. Like say forever," Kitty said as they walked up the steps to see Naruto, Professor X, Logan, Storm and Hunter waiting for them. "Or we could blame it all on Kurt," Kitty said. "Hey," Kurt commented. Professor Xavier wanted to speak with Scott alone in his study. "What really gets me is that I hesitated. I was so worried about anyone seeing me that I almost acted too late. And why? I mean, saving lives should be the most important thing we do with our powers," Scott said. "Scott, I know this is a confusing issue. Yes, helping others is the right thing to do, but we must also try to remain anonymous, at least for the present," Professor Xavier said. "It's like we're hiding in shame. What's the harm in letting people know?" Scott asked. "Because many of the same people are simply not ready to embrace the fact that mutants walk the earth. Look, Scott, I'm not blaming you for what you did. In fact, I would have done the same thing in your place. I'm just saying you need to do what you can without revealing what you are," Professor Xavier said. "I don't know, Professor. I'm having a hard time with this one," Scott said as he left. "Looks like you were right to have me assume a leadership role with the team," Professor X heard Naruto as he walked in. "Yes, while I don't blame Scott, it will be much harder for all of us to keep a low profile," Professor Xavier said. "Well, lucky for me, I know a thing or two about stealth, so keeping a low profile shouldn't be too hard. But I can't help but feel that Scott's right. We hide like we're ashamed of who we are. Don't get me wrong, I understand that humanity is not ready for us. But Professor, do you think one day they will? Naruto asked. I'm not sure. History is full of examples of people's adversity to new people and change, but with time and help they may one day accept us, Professor Xavier told Naruto as Naruto smiled. Which is why we need to be ready to face the world when it happens. Right, something tells me we're going to have a lot of practice with that soon enough, Naruto said. Line break XXXXX. Back at Bayville High, all the students were assembled in the gym because there was a new principal taking over since Mystique was still MIA. Scott was sitting with a friend. Kitty was sitting up front and the rest of the gang was sitting in the stands. Naruto was sitting behind Evan as the remaining students filed into the gym. The Brotherhood was off to the side of the gym, not wanting to deal with the school. Scott then saw Jean and waved at her, but Duncan waved her over and they sat together. The Brotherhood were off to the side, isolating themselves from everyone else. Man, this bums yo, even the flies think they're better than us, Todd said as he tried to catch a fly. Oh yeah, I don't even know why we're at school anyway, Fred said. But we do know what Lance is doing here. He'd like to get a certain kitty stuck in a tree, Pietro said as the others laughed. Lance then swiped at Pietro, who moved away. Rogue then walked in as Naruto waved at her to get her to sit next to him, but she then sat next to the new girl. Naruto smiled that she was making a new friend beside the X-Men. Lance then walked to the stands and sat behind Kitty, but she didn't want anything to do with him. And now everyone, let's give a warm Bayville High welcome to our new principal, Mr. Edward Kelly, the announcer said as everyone clapped and Lance smirked as he got an idea. He then used his powers to create a small earthquake which shook the gym. But only a little. Kitty chuckled a bit as Lance smiled. Hey Kitty, want to see some real shaking? Lance said as he used his powers to create another earthquake, but much stronger than before. The whole gym shook as the scoreboard kept above the basketball court began to shake and the wire holding it up broke, causing it to fall on Principal Kelly. Naruto saw this and used his magnetic powers to move the scoreboard so it didn't squish the new principal. Scott looked at Naruto and nodded as everyone wondered what the hell happened. Lance had a smile on his face, but Kitty was angry. Lance, get a clue? Okay. Since when is Bayville on a fault line? Principal Kelly joked as the students laughed. Anyway, I want to welcome you all to a new semester. I know that filling the vacuum left by your previous principal, Ms. Darkholme, will not be an easy job, but it's a challenge to which I am looking forward. And that brings me to what I hope will be the theme of the coming semester, meeting new challenges, you know. Most of us go through life thinking we're not so different from the people around us, and that's a mistake. Because I'll wager that every one of us here has some unique talents, some special gifts, some ability that makes us stand out from the rest of the crowd. However, that being said, I want your second priority to be supporting the girls' soccer team for the championship, Kelly said as the students erupted into cheers. And that means I want every one of you to turn out tonight for the big pregame rally. Can we count on you? Kelly shouted as the students cheered. School ended as the students were heading home. Scott was outside the school waiting for Jean. Hey, Sandy, have you seen Jean? Scott asked as she shook her head no. Kitty walked out of school to see Lance and his buddies. Lance tried to talk to her, but she didn't want to. Lance, just forget it. Kitty shouted. Hey, I said I was sorry for the scoreboard thing. Come on, don't be mad, Lance said. Lance, you can be such a jerk sometimes, Kitty said as she tried to leave, but Lance grabbed her hand. But before he could pull her back, another hand grabbed his wrist and twisted it, causing him to let go. Back off, Pebble, Naruto said as he twisted Lance's wrist and pushed him back. Alvarez, leave her alone, Scott said as Naruto and Kitty moved over to Scott. Hey, go recharge your batteries, Goggle Boy. This is between me and her, Lance said. Yeah, well, now it's between you and me, Scott said as he grabbed his shades. Go ahead, Summers, take your best shot. Let's see those eyes blast me through the fence. Right here, right now, Lance said as Scott was tempted to do so, but before he could, Naruto elbowed Lance in the gut, causing Lance to move back. Forget it, Scott, he wouldn't be worth it. None of them would be, Naruto said as Scott calmed down and the two left with Kitty. Lance was seething in anger. You know what, guys? They might like keeping things under wraps, but I've had it with hiding our powers, Lance said. But Mystique said, forget Mystique, she ain't around no more. So I say let's take Principal Kelly's advice and go public with our unique talents, Lance said. Line break XXXXX. The time for the championship soccer game has arrived and all of the X-Men were in the stands, and so were Professor Xavier and Storm, who were there to watch Jean. They cheered when Jean was announced as everyone was feeling the school spirit. Some news vans had appeared to broadcast the championship game and the pre-game festivities. Principal Kelly was now making his speech. In appreciation of the team spirit that has brought us all the way to tonight's championship game, we'd like to present our school mascot, the Bayville Hawk, Kelly said as they showed the new mascot statue on the scoreboard, which had flames coming out of the wings. Now, let the game begin, Kelly said as the two teams took their positions. The commenter was speaking, but then his mic was taken by Toad, who handed it to Lance. "Excuse me, folks," Lance said as the game stopped and everyone looked to see the Brotherhood on the commenter podium. "Hey, can I have your attention up here? What's he up to?" Scott asked. Quicksilver super sped to the spotlights and shined it on Avalanche, Toad and Blob. "That's better. My name's Lance. I also call myself Avalanche, because I'm a mutant. That's right. Me and Toad and Blob and Quicksilver here, we're all mutants, born different, what you might call freaks." "Hey, you, get down from there," a school guard said. "Sorry yo, mutants only," Toad said as he spat slime on the guard's face. "You see, there's lots of mutants at Bayville High. Scott Summers over there, he's one. And so is Jean Grey, your big soccer star, and most of their pals at the Xavier Institute," Lance said as the news cameras recorded everything. "Which is kind of a school for weirdo mutant nerds. Now being mutants means we got these special powers that we can use to make little improvements. For instance, we thought this game would be more fun if the goals were further apart," Lance said as he used his powers to create a giant fissure in the ground. Some of the players were unfortunate to fall into the fissure, but Jean was able to save some and Naruto used his powers to help too. "And we figured the new principal should have a better perspective on his new student body," Lance said as Quicksilver ran around Kelly and created a mini tornado. "That's it, they've gone too far, X-Men. It's time to act," Naruto said as they nodded and went off to get changed. "Sorry, Professor X, cat's out of the bag," Scott said as they left. "Storm, we need you," Professor X telepathically called her. "Another thing, we think that mascot totally reeks," Avalanche said as Blob walked up the stands and grabbed the mascot. People in the stands ran away as Blob towered over them, but before Blob could throw it, it was blasted away by a blue and red energy beam. The Brotherhood turned to see the X-Men ready to fight. "All right, Lance, you want it all out in the open. Let's put it out there," Scott said. "I've been waiting for this," Lance said as he jumped down and he and Scott fought. "Spike, Shadowcat, deal with the cameras," Naruto shouted as they nodded. Spike shot spikes at the news van antennas and Shadowcat phased through the camera, destroying it and the video recording. Jean then used her powers to stop Quicksilver and threw him away as she let down Principal Kelly, who ran away. Quicksilver then ran at Jean, but he was pushed away by Naruto, who sent a gravity push at him. Blob then tore through the stands, endangering a lot of students until he was pushed away by Naruto's gravity powers and hit the ground. Naruto then used his powers to fix the stands to let the students get away. Blob then charged at Naruto, but Naruto held him in place while Rogue walked up to him and drained his powers, knocking him unconscious. Toad then jumped at her, but Nightcrawler tackled him. "Stick to catching bugs, Toad," Nightcrawler yelled as he threw Toad, and Naruto blasted him with an energy blast, knocking him into Quicksilver. Lance was fighting Scott, shaking up the ground, but scotted him with an optic blast. Storm then arrived and created a downpour to put out the fire created when the mascot hit the school. Naruto then used the rain and concentrated and created a tidal wave and sent it at Lance. The force was so hard that it knocked him away and into the rest of the Brotherhood and knocked them all unconscious. The X-Men were glad they won, but the damage of Avalanche's exposure hurt more as the students were afraid and shunned them for being mutants. "Good work, Storm, and you too, Naruto," Professor Xavier said. "Yes, but no downpour can make people forget what they saw here. The secret is out," Storm said. "Perhaps not, if I can alter their memories of what's happened here," Professor X said. "No, there are too many. Even your mind couldn't handle such a strain," Storm said. "I really have no choice," Professor X said as he used his powers to wipe the memories of the battle and the news to everyone who witnessed it. Principal Kelly was the last, but when his mind was wiped, Professor X experienced a terrible headache and passed out. Professor Xavier awoke to find himself in the medical wing of the Institute. He saw Storm, Logan, Scott and Naruto waiting by his bed. "Easy, Charles, take it slow. You threw your brain into overload," Logan said. "But it worked. Eyewitnesses believe that Hawk's exploding fireworks caused all the damage," Storm said. "And with a little fixing up, the field was returned to normal and any sign of our fight there is gone," Naruto said. "What about the broadcast? How much got out? Charles asked. None, seems there was some kind of weird magnetic interference that knocked the station off the air seconds before, Logan said. Don't look at me, Naruto said. Magnetic? Could it be that he is still alive? Charles asked. Magneto, wouldn't doubt it, Logan said. Anyway, I guess we're back under wraps where we should be. I'm real sorry, Professor, like you said the world really isn't ready to learn about us, Charles said. I'm afraid not, Scott. Hopefully Lance and the others will come to realize that as well. My only concern is Principal Kelly. I was inside his mind when I blacked out, and I'm not sure if I finished the job, Charles said. After the battle at the Bayville girls' soccer finals, which no one except the X-Men remembers, things returned to normal. The final game was rescheduled and Bayville won to everyone's excitement. The next school day, the principal was having a meeting in the auditorium to celebrate the girls' soccer win and to give out awards. Yes, our girls had a winning soccer season. They thought like a team. They played like a team, and they respected each other as teammates. And it's those teammates who unanimously voted their choice for this year's Most Valuable Player award, Jean Grey. Principal Kelly said as everyone cheered. Jean smiled as she got up to get the award as the X-Men and all her schoolmates cheered. Way to go, Jean, Scott said as Evan whistled. Way to go, darling, yeah, woo-hoo. Risty shouted as she and Rogue sat next to Naruto. Naruto whistled loudly as Rogue just sat there and crossed her arms. Is that any way to treat your housemate? Risty asked. Perky Jean's got enough people already gushing over her, Rogue said in jealousy. Hey, come on, Rogue, this is a great award for her, Naruto said, trying to get Rogue out of her funk. Jean walked up to the podium and received her award from Principal Kelly. Thank you, Principal Kelly. And I want to thank all of you. Yeah, Jean, ride that popularity train for all it's worth. Jean stopped as she heard Rogue's thoughts. Why is she looking at me? Rogue thought as she saw Jean staring at her. Sorry, I want to stay cool, Jean heard Scott think. Come on, you can do it. Oh man, is she stuck? Glad that's not me up there. Jean, what's going on? Jean kept hearing their thoughts in her head. The thoughts began to stretch and she could hear not only her friends' thoughts but also everyone in the room, and it was getting very confusing and painful. She grabbed her head as the pain of hearing so many voices was getting to her that she threw her trophy in the air and backed up into the table that held the other awards. Her trophy hit the ground and broke as everyone looked at her. Jean shook her head and all the voices disappeared. She picked it up as she spoke. Sorry, lost my head there for a second. Jean joked as everyone laughed. As I was saying, I would like to thank all my teammates, our coach, and everyone who showed up and supported us, Jean said. Scott looked at Naruto and the two shared a look that something was off. The assembly ended as the students went to their classes. Jean stuck around for a bit and tried to think about what happened. Hey, Jean heard and saw Scott and Naruto walk up to her. Hey guys, Jean said. That speech was just like one of your games. Me on the edge of my seat, Scott said. Yeah? I guess I was king of nervous, Jean said. You sure it was just nerves? You seemed a little off, Naruto said. I'm fine. It was just the nerves. I better get to class, Jean said as they left for class. So I'll see you guys at Duncan's tonight? Duncan's? Naruto asked. The party? Oh, he didn't invite you too? She asked. It's all right, Scott said. Be there for me, you too. It'll be fun, Jean said as she left, and Scott looked at Naruto. Who knows, maybe something exciting will happen, Naruto said as he left. Naruto was walking through the hallway to the library for his free period. He was walking past the chemistry lab when he heard a small explosion and a puff of green smoke filled the classroom. Naruto rushed to open the door and got a whiff of a horrendous smell. Oh man! What reeks? Naruto shouted as he heard the class coughing. He saw Mr. McCoy coughing as well. Mr. McCoy, what happened? Naruto asked as he held his nose shut. Stink bombs, bad idea. Now I need to find a remedy for that, Mr. McCoy said. I'll give you one. Isolation, Naruto said as he left. Line break XXXXX. After school, Scott and Naruto got ready to head to Duncan's party. Rogue had already left and was there, and so was Jean. Naruto and Scott walked through the halls of the mansion, passing by Kitty, who was still trying to get rid of the stink bomb smell on her clothes. Cannonball and Wolfsbane ran through the halls and up the main staircase, causing Scott to fall down while Naruto just jumped and landed on the ground. Scott got in his car while Naruto went to the garage and got in his, and they drove to the party. They rode to Duncan's house and parked their cars as a soccer ball flew through the air and hit Scott on the head. Naruto caught the ball and Scott looked around, ready to use his powers but saw Naruto holding a soccer ball. Easy there, trigger finger, it's just a soccer ball, Naruto said as he tossed the ball to Scott and walked into the house. That's soccer, Mr. Gridiron, not football, Jean told Duncan. Not where I'm from, Risty said. As she and Rogue were chilling, Rogue took a swig of some water and had a mood on her face. Hey moody girl, what's eating you? Where I'm from, people like me never party with people like them, Rogue said as she took another drink. She then looked to the door and saw Scott and Naruto walk in. Naruto waved hello as he was approached by a bunch of girls as they flirted with him. You okay? Risty asked. Yeah, fine, Rogue said. She then looked at Naruto as Risty looked too and smiled. Oh, I get it. I think someone has a crush on a certain blonde, Risty said. What? No, I don't, Rogue said. I see the way you stare at him sometimes. Why don't you call him over? He likes you too, Risty asked. You think? Rogue asked. Of course, he always sits with you at lunch, Risty said. That doesn't mean anything. We always sit together at lunch, Rogue said. And the way he looks at you when you're not watching, Risty said. Really? Rogue asked. Oh, better get ready, here he comes, Risty said as Rogue saw Naruto walk over. Hey, Naruto said as he sat down. Hi, Rogue said as she blushed a little. You look great tonight, Naruto said as Rogue blushed and smiled. Thanks, you don't look too bad yourself, Rogue replied as Naruto chuckled. I think I'm going to get some punch, later, Risty said as she got up and left. Rogue and Naruto had a bit of awkward silence, so, they both said. Naruto grinned and let Rogue go first. So how've you been? Rogue asked as she looked at her gloved hands. Better now, didn't really want to come to this party. And seeing Duncan and Scott go at it, I probably should have listened to myself, Naruto said as Rogue looked over to Duncan and Scott. They were having a very intense game of ping-pong, trying to impress Jean. Rogue scowled a little, watching Little Miss Perfect have to boys fight over her. Watch this, Naruto said as he used his gravity powers to slightly push Scott and Duncan so they both fell on their backs. Everyone chuckled at this as Jean looked at Naruto who laughed and Rogue who was chuckling. Maybe that will put an end to the ping-pong death games, Naruto said. I don't think so, Rogue said. What do you say we get out of here? We can ride into town, maybe catch a late movie, Naruto said. Let's do it, Rogue said as they got up to leave, just missing another spike in Jean's telepathic powers. After walking around town and catching a movie and some ice cream, Naruto and Rogue drove back to the institute. They smiled as they were talking about the funniest parts of the movie and walked in the front door to see a soaking wet Scott, talking with Professor X and Jean. Are we interrupting something? Naruto asked. Nothing, just a little incident at Duncan's party, Jean said. Oh man, and I missed it, crud, Naruto said as Rogue laughed. Ha ha, very funny Naruto, Scott said as he squeezed his sweater to get some water out. You two got in late, there's a curfew for a reason, Professor X said. Sorry, Professor, Naruto said as Rogue pouted. I bet he wouldn't treat Jean like this, Rogue thought as Jean heard it. Hey, that's not true, he doesn't treat me any different from you, Jean said to Rogue. Hey, who gave you permission to go into my head? Rogue asked. What? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it, Jean said. Yeah, right, Rogue said as she went upstairs. After Jean accidentally heard Rogue's thoughts, he wanted to speak to her in private. It seems you're having trouble with your telepathy, Professor X said. I'm just tired. It was a long soccer season and tomorrow I've got track and field tryouts, and Scott and Duncan have been going at it, Jean said. Perhaps it is fatigue, or it could be that your powers are growing. Let me help you control them, Jean. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here, Professor X said. Professor, I can handle it. Really, don't be worried. All I need is a good night's sleep, Jean told him. All right then, good night, Jean, Professor X said as she left. You think it might be something else? Naruto said as he stepped out into the room. Possibly, fatigue could be the reason, but I sense it may be something else, Professor X said. Well, we'll just have to keep an eye on her for the next few days, see if her powers start to act up, Naruto said. Excellent idea. Would you mind watching over her at her tryouts tomorrow? Professor X asked. Sure thing, Naruto replied. Thank you, Naruto. Now I suggest you get some sleep. Good night, Professor X said as he left. Good night, Professor, Naruto said as he walked up the stairs to his room and saw Rogue leave the bathroom. Rogue, hey, I just wanted to check up on you, after the incident with Jean. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I may have overreacted. But I had a great time tonight, I really did, Rogue said. I'm glad, maybe we can do it again. Naruto asked. Sure, Rogue said. All right then, good night, Naruto said as he kissed her hand like a gentleman, and she blushed as they both went to their rooms, went to sleep. Line break XXXXX. The next day, after school, the field and track tryouts were being held as Naruto sat in the bleachers and watched. He saw Jean there as well as Scott and Duncan and Kitty as well. He also saw Mr. McCoy as the track and field coach and was watching all the students who were trying out. Naruto saw that Duncan and Scott soon began to have little competitions at each event. They tried to see who could throw the javelin farther, who could land the pole vault the cleanest, and who was the fastest on the track. Scott and Duncan were neck and neck as they were finishing their last lap, but Duncan, being the muscle-bound idiot and jerk, knocked Scott to the ground, causing his glasses to fall off. Naruto and Mr. McCoy saw this as Scott tumbled on the ground and tried to find his glasses. Naruto jumped off the bleachers and ran to Scott as Mr. McCoy looked at Duncan. Hit the showers, Matthews, you're off the team, McCoy told Duncan. But I go, McCoy told him. He then walked up to Scott as Naruto helped Scott to his feet and picked up Scott's glasses. Keep your eyes closed, McCoy said as he gave Scott his glasses. Scott put his glasses on and looked at McCoy. Coach? Scott asked. Go take 5. Huh, okay. Who's running the 200? McCoy asked as he went back to the others. Scott and Naruto smiled but saw that Jean was on the ground holding her head. Her powers were acting up as her telekinesis began to act up as well. Crap, Naruto said as he saw Jean lift up a javelin and toss it at Kitty. Lance, who was watching the tryouts, saw the javelin heading towards Kitty and used his powers to cause her and the other girls to fall. Just in time as the javelin missed their heads, Jean then lifted up 4 20-pound balls and sent them flying. Mr. McCoy caught 2 with incredible strength as Scott dodged another. Scott saw it was flying towards Duncan and blasted it away, inadvertently causing it to fly into Principal Kelly's office. Naruto caught the 4th one with his gravity powers as he and Scott ran to Jean. Jean? Jean, what's wrong? Scott asked as Jean fell backwards. Scott, help me! I can't stop it, Jean said as she passed out. Let's get her back to the institute, Naruto said as Scott picked up Jean and Kitty ran over to them and they drove back to the mansion. Kitty got out first and ran inside to get the professor. Professor! Kitty yelled as Naruto opened the doors for Scott to walk in. Professor Xavier and Logan led Naruto, Scott and Jean down to the medical lab. Put her on the table, Scott, Professor X told Scott as he placed her down. Jean's powers began to act up again as some medical supplies floated up and nearly hit Scott if Logan didn't pull him back. Soon, other things in the room began to fly around. Chairs, computers, cabinets, and medical supplies began to fly around. Please, Scott, I'll let you know as soon as I know something, Professor X told Scott, who was reluctant to leave. You heard the man, Logan said as he escorted Scott and Naruto out of the room. Professor X then used his powers to enter Jean's mind. Her mind was extremely clustered with thoughts and voices, and Jean was unable to get control to try and sort through it all. Her telepathic and telekinetic powers were growing too fast for her to handle, and it finally built up, and she sent out a telekinetic that destroyed the medical lab and sent Professor X into the wall. Logan, Scott and Naruto were pushed to the ground from the explosion and got up to see Jean's body float up. Scott got up and ran to her, but she sent out another telepathic wave and knocked Scott to the ground. Naruto went over to Professor X and helped him into his chair as the 4 left the medical lab and went back to the main floor. They exited the elevator to see the others waiting for them in their X-Men gear. What is going on down there? Kurt asked as they felt the mansion shake. Yeah, is Jean alright? Kitty asked. No, she's not. Her powers are evolving too rapidly for her to control, Professor X said as they felt the house shake again. I've got to get back down there, Scott said as he moved to the elevator, but Naruto stopped him. Wait, you can't even get close to her. We need a plan, Naruto said as Scott pushed Naruto's arm off him. Like what? Scott asked as Rogue walked forward. I have an idea. You say there's too much going on in Jean's head, then let me drain some off, Rogue said. No, Rogue, it may be too much for you, Professor X told her. I can handle it, just let me try, Rogue said. There's so much chaos in her mind. What she needs is something to focus on, Professor X said. If Rogue can clear her thoughts, then maybe I can get her to focus on me, Scott said. We don't have too many options, Charles, Naruto. Anything you might be able to do to help Jean? Logan asked. Sorry, my powers deal with combat. I've got nothing in terms of telepathic powers, Naruto said. Kurama, anything you can do? Naruto asked Kurama. No, my specialty is combat, not therapy. The best you can do is to protect Rogue and get her close enough, Kurama said. I can't help her, but I can get us close enough, Naruto said. Very well then, Professor X said as he then looked to Evan, Kitty and Kurt. You three stay here. Naruto can get Scott, Rogue and I close enough. You sure, Chuck? Logan asked. I trust him, Professor X said as he looked at Naruto. Let's do it, Naruto said as he and Scott quickly changed into their uniforms and took the elevator down. They exited the elevator to see the floor in shambles as a table was sent flying at them, but Naruto blasted it to pieces before it hit them. They saw Jean floating in the air with debris flying around her, and the entire medical lab was destroyed. Professor X saw Jean and how much pain she was in as her powers continued to grow. I fear we haven't much time, Professor X said. Clock's running. Let's move, Scott said as Naruto ran in front and Scott, Rogue and Professor X followed. Scott blasted some flying chunks of debris out of the air while Naruto used his gravity powers to make a gravity shield. He was able to use the gravity shield to repel any flying debris or object that was thrown his way. Naruto created the gravity shield in front of him and charged forward, using his other hand to blast any wayward piece of debris. When they got close enough, Naruto created a large rock wall to shield Professor X and Scott while Naruto grabbed Rogue and flew towards Jean. Naruto got caught in Jean's telekinetic wave as the force caused him to stagger as he flew, but he kept moving straight for Jean. Rogue, now! Naruto shouted as Rogue reached out with ungloved hand and touched Jean's cheek and held it for a few seconds as Rogue groaned in pain at the overload of energy. When Rogue let go, Naruto quickly flew back to Professor X as Scott tried to talk to Jean. Jean, it's Scott. Please listen to my voice. Focus on it. Scott yelled to Jean. Scott? Scott heard but saw it was Rogue who was speaking. Jean was speaking through Rouge. Where are you? Jean? Scott yelled in confusion, seeing Rogue speak but Jean's voice come out. Help me, Scott. Jean yelled out. I will, Jean, just focus on me, Scott said. I can't, I'm losing you, Jean said. No, don't tell me what you can't do. I know you better than anyone ever has, or ever will. Come on, you can do this, Scott said as Jean began to concentrate. Scott? Jean said as she shut off her powers and fell on the medical slab. Jean then stirred awake as she saw the destroyed medical lab and Naruto, Scott, Rogue and Professor X. Jean! Scott yelled as he ran over to her. Way to go, Rogue, Naruto told her as she smiled at him. Thanks, Rogue said, as she fought down a blush. Line break XXXXX. After Jean had regained consciousness, Professor X worked with her to make sure she had her powers under control for the time being. But for right now, she was fine. Jean was outside in the yard, sitting on a bench as she was enjoying the peace. Rogue was by a window looking at her when Scott came up to her. She's got it under control, and the professor will be working with her to keep it that way, Scott told her. Great, Rogue said. You risked so much to save her, Rogue. What made you do it? Scott asked. It was nothing, Rogue said. Yes, it was. Tell me, Scott said. Me and Miss Popularity there, we're worlds apart. Galaxies. But then I realized something, Rogue said. What? Scott asked. That she'd do the same thing for me, Rogue said. Believe it, Rogue, we all would, Scott told her as he left to talk to Jean. He's right, we all would, Rogue heard as she saw Naruto walk up to her. Thank Naruto and thanks for before as well, Rogue said. Don't mention it, so, I don't know if you're up to it, but maybe you want to head to town, grab some dinner? Naruto asked Rogue. Sure, I'd like that, Rogue said as she grabbed Naruto's arm and they left while Scott repaired his relationship with Jean and laid the ground for something to come. Line break XXXXX. Boom boom. Time had passed since Jean's little power overflow, but she had her powers back under control. Professor Xavier was working with Jean to control her powers and prevent another episode like that from happening again. With Naruto and Rogue, they spent some more time together, hanging out, watching movies, and the two were really getting close. Naruto really liked spending time with Rogue and Rogue really enjoyed being with Naruto. She was able to relax and be herself with him. Now Scott, Naruto, Kurt and Logan were working with the new recruits on an early morning training exercise near the cliffs of the Institute. Kurt was playing an unconscious team member trapped along the ridge as Scott rappelled down. Logan stayed up top with the recruits while Naruto was hovering nearby, watching over the training. Confirmed, he's unconscious, Scott said as he saw Kurt on the ridge. And starving, speed up the rescue would you? I need my breakfast, Kurt said. Quiet, Tabitha, you should be on your way down here with that basket, Scott said. Ah man, boom boom, you placed my life in the hands of a maniac? Kurt asked. The recruits were getting the basket hooked up as Logan was watching them work. Tabitha, on the other hand, was sitting on a rock listening to her music. Logan saw her and pulled her headphones off. Hey, where's your comm link, kid? Logan asked her. Huh? Oh, grabbed the wrong headset by mistake. No big deal. Am I up? Tabitha asked. Yeah, Logan said as Tabitha gave a funny salute and got on the basket. Yeah. Look out below. Boom boom's bombing in. Woo-hoo! Tabitha shouted as the basket lowered down. I'm going to die, Kurt said. Relax, Kurt, Naruto said as Tabitha landed next to Kurt. Hey cutie, Tabitha said. Hey, I have to ask, are you insane? Kurt asked as Tabitha pinched his cheek. His code name is Nightcrawler, and he's unconscious, Scott said. Oh yeah, Kurt said as he played his role. Well, first things first, right? We got to boom apart these rocks, Tabitha said as she created a small boom charge and placed it by the rocks. Fire in the hole, Tabitha shouted as the explosion cleared the debris. And in the basket you go, Tabitha said as she pushed Kurt in with her foot. Oh, I'm an injured victim, not a log, Kurt said. Nightcrawler, huh, that name's just not working for you. I'm sorry. Whoa, how about Wild Blue Yonder Boy? Tabitha asked. You are insane, Kurt said. Okay, get the victim topside, Scott said. Why oh, Badger? Tug us up, Tabitha shouted. It's Wolverine, Logan said as he brought the basket up. As the basket was being brought up, Kurt smirked as he got an idea to mess with Tabitha. He rolled off the basket as Tabitha gasped, seeing him fall, but he then teleported back into the basket and laughed. You forgot to strap me in. 10 points off, Kurt said. Ugh, this isn't good, Scott said. Oh yeah, well hang on to your blue tail, yonder boy, woo-hoo! Tabitha shouted as she swung the basket and threw some booms at the cliff wall. Hey, knock it off! Logan yelled. Guys, enough! Naruto shouted. Kurt chuckled, but the basket swung too close to the wall, and he hit his head hard, knocking him out and causing him to fall out of the basket and plummet to the rocks below. Come on! Joke's over, get back up here! Tabitha shouted as Naruto quickly flew down and grabbed Kurt before he hit the rocks. After Naruto narrowly rescued Kurt, the new recruits were gathered because Professor Xavier wanted to talk to them about why it's important to take the training sessions seriously. I know these training sessions can seem like a hassle, but we have them for many reasons. One is for your safety, and the only way to enforce them and to ensure your obedience, and keep you all safe, is for there to be penalties. So Tabitha, Kurt, you two are refined to the Institute. Every day after school, you are prohibited from using your powers, and you will attend 2 training sessions a day with Logan, Professor X told them. But yes, Professor, Kurt said, stopping Tabitha from speaking, we understand. Tabitha was a bit irked, but Naruto went up to them. You're lucky I got to Kurt before he hit the rocks. Think of this as a light punishment. I plan on forcing you guys into the danger room with 100 times gravity. And it's not pleasant, Naruto said as Kurt paled a little bit as they left to get ready for school. Line break XXXXX. With the Brotherhood, they were doing their morning routines and trying to find food in their falling-apart kitchen, but the place was completely empty. Toad was sitting by the garbage, eating flies. House flies. Nothing like a balanced breakfast, Toad said as Pietro super sped through the room and tried to find some food in the cupboards. Man, the cupboards are bare and falling apart, Pietro said as one of the cupboard doors fell off. Yeah, what's with this cheap dump anyway? Fred asked. Yo, what we need is some serious coin, and I know where to get it, Toad said as he jumped past the kitchen and up the stairs and slammed against the door to Mystique's room, but it was locked tight and the door was tough that he just bounced off so hard and tumbled back down the stairs. Lance walked out of his room with his backpack over his shoulder and saw Toad jump back up and try again. Ah man, he's at it again, Fred said as they saw Toad tumble down the stairs. Toad tried a third time but still bounced off and Fred caught him. That door's got to be made out of adamantium or something, Toad said. Hey, knock it off, Toad. Not that I like you or nothing, but I don't want to see you get hurt, Fred said. Yeah, what happens when Mystique shows up and finds out that you busted into her room? Pietro asked. Mystique ain't coming back, so let's see if she left some cash lying around, Toad said as Fred tossed him into the wall. Ow, that your final answer? See ya, Einsteins. I'll be at school, Lance said as he left, and Fred and Pietro looked at him. Yeah, me too, for my own safety, Toad said as he followed Lance. Line break XXXXX. At Bayville High School, the students were walking to their classes as Principal Kelly was making an announcement about the upcoming Bayville Carnival. Good morning, students. Tonight is the big night, the Bayville High Carnival fundraiser. Now folks, remember, all proceeds will help cover the costs of rebuilding our gymnasium after last month's fire. So we really hope to see you all back here tonight, Principal Kelly said into the intercom. He then turned to the secretary, Dorothy. Every hour during the carnival I'd like you to collect the earnings and deposit them in here, Principal Kelly told her. Yes, Principal Kelly, may I help you, sir? Dorothy said as he saw a man approach the desk. Yes, my daughter is enrolled here, Tabitha Smith. I'd like to see her, he said. Dorothy then opened the file cabinet and looked through the files for Tabitha's while Principal Kelly went in his office. Mr. Smith looked at the picture and smirked. I'm sorry, sir, Tabitha has a restricted visitors list. I'll have to refer you to the Xavier Institute, Dorothy told him. Then I'll have to check with them. Thank you, Mr. Smith said as he left. The students were heading to their next classes as Tabitha was trying to get books from her locker, but it was jammed and wasn't opening. Tabitha got fed up, so she created a small boom charge and slipped it inside, and the lock exploded open. Hey, this isn't my locker, Tabitha said as she shut the locker to see Kurt and an agitated Naruto. That was my locker, Naruto said as Tabitha chuckled nervously and Kurt smirked. TCH, no powers, remember, Kurt said. Whoa, 1 lecture a day is my limit, Tabitha said as she went over to her real locker. Well, I think we got off easy, Kurt said. A little too easy if you asked me, Naruto said as he looked as he'd burned books and destroyed locker. Please, Professor X needs to loosen his necktie a little. Blue. I mean, what's the point of having these powers if you can't have a little fun once in a while? Tabitha said to Kurt. To prevent accidents like this morning or this, Naruto said, pointing to his locker, from happening. You're not alone anymore, Tabitha. Not that you're part of the institute. Everything you do affects us. One misstep and you expose all of us. You don't control your powers better. You're going to end up in jail. That goes for the both of you, Naruto said, talking to Kurt and Tabitha. Kurt nodded while Tabitha just huffed. Now, get to class. Unlike you guys, I got a free pass today. So I'll head back to the institute and work with Logan on your training sessions. I wouldn't eat too much tonight, or you'll just puke it up later, Naruto said as he left. Kurt and Tabitha parted ways as she ran to her class but was shocked to see her father waiting around the corner for her. Dad? Tabitha said in shock. Morning, Tabby, he said. What are you doing here? Tabitha asked, as she moved to leave. It's taken me 2 long months, Princess, but I've finally tracked you down, he said as he grabbed her arms. Leave me alone. I've got to get to class, Tabitha said as she got free. Hey, I just want to talk, that's all, he told her. I've heard it all before, Tabitha said. Look, your mom and we're trying to work things out. I want to put everything right. But I can't do it without you, he said. Try, Tabitha said as she left. Line break XXXXX. Naruto had a half day, because his science class was put on hold until the new science building could be built, or at least until they found a new teacher. Anyway, Naruto wasn't complaining. He drove back to the institute, fed Hunter and grabbed lunch in the kitchen. He then went to the living room to watch TV, when he heard someone open the front door and talk to the professor. Naruto got up and walked to the front atrium to hear Professor Xavier talk with Tabitha's dad. He wanted to see her but he wasn't allowed to. You have no parental rights here, Mr. Smith. Tabitha's mother has left explicit instructions about your visitation, so I'll have to ask you to leave, Professor Xavier said as wheelchaired away. You don't think I don't know what kind of secret freak show this place is, huh? Mr. Smith asked. Are you trying to make a point, Mr. Smith? Professor X asked. Yeah, I see, Tabitha, or I'll have news crews here by tonight. You choose, Mr. Smith said as he placed his hands on Professor X's shoulders, and Naruto decided it was time for him to go. Those hands of yours, they heard and turned to see Logan walked in. I think I might relocate them into a jar on my dresser, Logan said as he unsheathed his claws. Or how about we fry them up and make a treat for my wolf? You choose, Naruto said, in a warning tone as he summoned fire in his hands, and Hunter slowly walked up to Mr. Smith, growling and showing his sharp teeth. Easy, I just want to see my daughter, is all, Mr. Smith said. Try to threaten us again, you won't get the chance, Naruto warned him as they heard the front door open and Tabitha and Kurt walked in. Dad, Tabitha growled as she led her dad into another room. I don't like him, Professor, Naruto said as Kurt left to get ready for training. Even so, Naruto, If Tabitha allows him to speak to her, we can't deny that, Professor X said. He's not interested in his daughter, just her powers. Well, he better watch out. No one uses my friends, Naruto said as he and Hunter left. Tabitha led her dad to one of the study rooms as her dad tried to talk to her. Just hear me out, he said. I already heard you. You want me to come home and pretend we're a family again, Tabitha said. We do want you home, really, but after things are settled and we get the creditors off our backs, Mr. Smith said as Tabitha growled. I knew it. All you want is money, Tabitha shouted. Just enough to get us back on our feet, that's all, he told her. Well, I don't have any, nada, Tabitha replied. Yeah, but you can get it, he said. That's all I am to you, is it? Someone to blast through walls and doors. What is it this time? An electronics store? The Bayville Bank? She asked. Tabby, this money, it's more for your mother than for me. She's had it pretty rough, you know that, he told her. If I do it, then you leave, and I don't ever see you again, right? Tabitha asked. If that's the way you want it, dear, I'll be waiting for you at the school carnival. We'll talk more there, he said as he left. Line break XXXXX. The Bayville High Carnival had begun as family and students were in attendance for a night of rides, games, and food. The X-Men were in attendance as Jean and Scott were with their dates. Naruto was hanging out with Rogue and Kitty and playing some games. Naruto then heard some movement and commotion and saw Fred and Lance chase after something. Naruto then concentrated and felt Kurt and Tabitha's energy signature. He shook his head. Boy, were they going to get it when they got back. Hey, Naruto, win us another one, Kitty said as Naruto turned to see Kitty and Rogue holding two stuffed animals. Naruto smirked as he went up to the carnival game. It was child's play for a shinobi. Kurt and Tabitha were hanging out when Tabitha gave him the slip because she saw her dad. Fred and Lance saw her and Lance knew she would present an opportunity with her powers. Tabitha ditched Kurt and walked up to her dad. Look, I figure I'll drain a couple of video games, maybe some pay phones, Tabitha told him. Chump change, no, I got my sight on something bigger, much bigger, like tonight's proceeds, he said as they saw Dorothy take a large bag of money to the school, the vault in the office. You're going to blow it, and I'm going to clean it out. No, 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 bad plan, Tabitha said. Tabby, just this one big take and I'm gone within the hour, I promise, he said as Tabitha reluctantly agreed. Lance and Fred overheard them and chuckled. Ha, after tonight, our cash shortage is over, Lance said. Kurt walked around trying to find Tabitha and saw her, but she was walking away with her dad towards the school building and figured something bad was going to happen. Kurt ran through the carnival and found Naruto and Rogue talking with Scott and his date, Karen. Naruto, Scott, I need your help, Kurt shouted. Yeah, I bet, man, Kurt. It's not that, I think Tabitha's in trouble. Who else is here? Kurt asked. I think just us, Jean and Evan, Scott said. We don't have time. Let's go, Naruto said as Rogue and Kurt ran after Tabitha. I got to go, Karen, Scott said as he ran up to them. Tabitha and her dad snuck into the school, and Tabitha blew the lock on the door to the administration office. Alarms probably tripped. Let's move, he said as walked to the vault behind the painting. Come on, make it a big one. Tabitha created a boom charge and placed it on the vault handle, which exploded and the vault opened to reveal a large bag of money. They grabbed it and ran, only for Toad to jump in front of them. Yo, Pops, I'm here to make a withdrawal, Toad said as he grabbed the bag of money and jumped away. Tabitha and her dad ran after him to the old science building and they saw Toad hand over the money to Avalanche and Blob. What do you think of my technique now, Tabby? Lance mocked her. Unimpressed, Tabitha said as she moved to leave, but her dad stopped her. Get it back, use your powers, her dad told her when the door to the building was blasted open by a blue energy beam. They saw Naruto, Kurt, Rogue, and Scott walk in. Anybody here seen a lost bag of cash? Scott asked. What are you guys doing here? Tabitha asked. Looking to get hurt, that's what, Avalanche said as he used his powers to shake the building, but Naruto used his to stabilize it, much to Avalanche's anger. I got the money, Toad said as he jumped away. Kurt and Rogue teleported over there and Rogue delivered an axe kick to his back, which sent him flying away and the bag on the ground. Scott ran up to pick it up as Blob jumped on him but was blasted with Scott and Naruto's energy blasts, and sent flying into the wall, but the bag was thrown to the side. Kurt, get the bag, Naruto said as Kurt teleported and got the bag, but Lance used his powers to send a fissure towards Kurt, knocking him and the bag away. Enough of this, pedal! Naruto said as he sent a gravity force wave and knocked Lance so hard that he hit the wall and fell down, unconscious. Mr. Smith saw the bag, took it and ran. I'll get him, Naruto said, but Tabitha stopped him. No, I will, Tabitha said as she ran after her dad. Tabitha chased her dad up the stairs to the roof of the old building. Mr. Smith had one misplaced step which caused his foot to fall into the old roof, and the rest of the roof to crumble away. Mr. Smith tried to reach for the bag of cash, despite hearing his daughter to leave it and grab her hand. His greed cost him as the roof gave way and collapsed. Kurt teleported them to safety, but Mr. Smith just ran away with Tabitha pursuing him outside, but the cops showed up. Damn, everyone scatter, Naruto said as the X-Men ran away and the Brotherhood took off. Line break XXXXX. At the Bayville police station, Tabitha was sitting in a cell next to her dad when a police officer came up. Tabitha Smith, you're free to go, the police officer said as he opened the cell. What, how? She asked. Someone paid bail, the officer said, as Naruto stepped forward. Tabitha, the professor is waiting outside, give me a second, Naruto told her as she nodded, and the officer led him to Mr. Smith's cell. Mind if I have a minute with him? Naruto asked as the cop nodded and stepped away. Hello, worst dad of the year, Naruto joked. What do you want? Mr. Smith said. Just to tell you, you lost something today. You chose money over your own daughter, Naruto said. So what? She's a freak. Nothing but a tool to get me what I want, Mr. Smith said as Naruto growled in anger. I hope you enjoy your time in jail, because if I ever see you near Tabitha again, or near the institute, you'll regret it, and don't even think about trying to blab about what you saw, because if you do, there is no place in this world where you can hide from me, Naruto said as his eyes turned red and Mr. Smith backed away scared. Naruto walked away and chuckled, as his scare tactic worked, but it was the truth. If he tried anything, he would regret it. Naruto led Tabitha outside the police precinct to see Kurt and Professor Xavier waiting for her. So, what's going to happen to my father? She asked. They're detaining him, with the charges for coercing you. He had several outstanding warrants, Professor Xavier told her. I'll just go pick up my stuff and be out of your way, Tabitha said as he tried to leave, but Naruto put his hand on her shoulder and stopped her. I don't think so, none of what happened tonight was your fault, Naruto told her. Why shouldn't I go? All I do is cause trouble, and I don't think the institute is the best place for me, Tabitha said. So, we all make mistakes. Besides, I saw you two back at the carnival. It's my fault. I should have sent you guys back then, Naruto said as Kurt looked at him. It doesn't matter. I shouldn't have listened to him, Tabitha said. Then think of this as a learning experience. One of many everyone has to go through, Naruto said. But, I think Naruto is right, Tabitha, Professor X said, interrupting her. Even if believe you should leave, I believe it's in your best interest to stay at the institute. We can help you get better control of your powers and help you along the way. So you guys really want me to stay? Tabitha asked. But of course, who else would make me scared for my life? Kurt joked. Well then, I guess you got your wish, Blue, Tabitha said. Although, there is still the issue of your punishment. You two did break the rules of not leaving the institute and using your powers, Naruto said as Kurt and Tabitha nervously chuckled. Quite right, and I believe that Naruto has the perfect punishment, Professor Xavier said. You two will have to wash all the uniforms, clean all the vehicles, do all the chores and clean the danger room. For 2 months, Naruto said. Well, that's not so bad, Tabitha said. And you'll do it along with 2 months of extended training sessions with me and Logan, Naruto said as he and Professor X went to the car while Kurt broke down crying. Line break XXXXX. Arcade. At the Stokes County Maximum Security Facility, alarms and bells began to go off in the control room about one of the extreme prisoners that was kept locked up. The head security guard headed down to the cell that was experiencing the trouble and walked in to see the scientists scrambling to try and solve the problem. Sir, Plexus 1 is down, one of the scientists said. Systems 2 through 7 going dark, the other said. Understood, we can't correct it down here. You'll have to initiate the override sequence upstairs, the guard said. That's a negative, sir. I'm already shut out. We've got a major malfunction. How should we proceed, sir? The scientist asked. By making a call, the guard said as he saw the cell come out of the ground to reveal the juggernaut, Cain Marco. In the dead of night, Professor Xavier telepathically called the X-Men from their sleep to talk to them near the atrium. Students, please, I must ask you to gather downstairs immediately, Professor X told them. The X-Men gathered around as Professor Xavier exited from the elevator that led to Cerebro. I apologize for the late hour, but I just received an urgent message from Captain Stone, Professor X said. Stone, from the penitentiary? Naruto asked. Whoa, we're not talking another Juggernaut breakout, are we? Evan asked, concerned. No, at least not yet, but his containment unit has begun to fail, Professor X said. We'll be suited up and ready to go in 5, gang. Let's move, Scott said as Professor X signaled them to stop. No, I'll be going alone. However, with Ororo away in Africa and Logan on the open road somewhere, I am faced with a dilemma, which means Scott, Jean, Naruto, I'm placing you 3 in charge. Can I count on you? Professor Xavier asked. Without a doubt, Professor, Scott said. We'll hold down the fort here. You just worry about your brother, Jean said. Don't worry, we can handle things here, Naruto said. Yes, thank you, I'll see you in a few days, Professor X said as he re-entered the elevator. Okay, since we're all up, how about we start the day with a little danger room calisthenics? Scott asked as everyone groaned in annoyance and went back to bed. As one of the 3 people left in charge, I say we just go back to bed, Naruto said as everyone seemed to agree and went to their rooms, leaving just Scott and Jean. Don't let the power of command go to your head, Professor S., Jean joked as she went to bed. Yawn, okay, you win, Scott said as he went to bed as well. Line break XXXXX. Professor Xavier arrived at the Stokes County facility and immediately talked with Captain Stone as he informed the professor about the situation regarding Kane Marco. Professor Xavier had a plan, but it wasn't necessarily the best idea. I don't like it, it's too risky, Captain Stone said. Shutting down the security grid is the only solution that makes sense, Professor Xavier said. But what happens during the 26-second reboot sequence? Captain Stone asked. His paralysis shouldn't wear off that quickly. We'll be alright, Professor Xavier said as Stone nodded. Okay, alert the base to a code 12, Captain Stone said. Back with the X-Men, they were at school. Naruto was in his class while Scott had a free period and was talking with Karen. They were outside and so was Jean, who was hanging up some posters and partially eavesdropping. Come on, just like one peek, let's see what's behind those shades, blue or brown. Oh, or maybe hazel, Karen said as she reached up for his glasses, but Scott grabbed her hand. Try beet red. It was a long night, Scott said as Karen leaned closer and Jean didn't like it. Oh, come on, just one little peek, please, Karen said. Karen, really no don't, Scott said. Oh well, got to get to class. But one of these days I want to know all your little secrets, Karen said as Jean seethed in jealousy. That'll be a day to remember, Scott said as he walked away but ran into Jean. Jean? What? How long have you been standing here? Scott asked. Look, I was not spying on you, Jean said. Spying? Who said anything about, what a second, you were spying on me, don't tell me you're jealous. Scott asked. What? Oh yeah, right, I'm jealous, PFF, of all the nerve, I am so sure, Scott Summers, she said as she walked away, but Scott smirked, he knew she was jealous. Naruto and Kitty were in their computer class as Kitty had accidentally fallen asleep and her powers had activated, causing some malfunctions with the hardware. Kitty cried, most people can't program such complicated game protocols without crashing their computer. You, on the other hand, have managed to crash 3, the teacher said as everyone chuckled. Sorry, I didn't get much sleep, Kitty said. They heard some commotion near one of the computers as Risty was watching a kid named Weber play some video game on the computer. He was really into it, and good at it, and called himself Arcade to add to his ego. The teacher then turned off the computer as class got out. Naruto walked to his locker while Risty walked over to Kitty. Hey Kitty, anything fun going on this weekend? Risty asked. Nothing, my ears have been to the ground all week, but the party circuit is dry, Kitty said. If only we knew someone whose parents were gone for the night, we could throw our own party, Risty said as Kitty got an idea. She met with Kurt, Evan and Rogue at her locker and told the others about the idea to host a party while the professor was away. Yeah, while the professor is away, Evan said. The kids can play, Kurt said, and play it loud. Woo-hoo, Kitty said in excitement. Reality check people, Scott and Jean, Rogue said. Oh yeah, they all said, as their moods turned sour. Oh yeah, that's a problem, but what are X-Men, if not problem solvers, right? Kurt said. What about Naruto? Evan asked. He said something about staying at the Bayville Library all night for a paper, Rogue said. All right, all we have to do is deal with Jean and Scott, and we got ourselves a party, Kitty said, excited. Line break XXXXX. Back at the Stokes facility, Captain Stone and Professor Xavier were preparing to shut down the system so Professor Xavier could repair it. But Captain Stone wanted to have some extra security, so he called down about 16 extra security guards, armed with tasers, machine guns and riot shields to try and stop Cain Marco if it should come to that. "All right, on my mark and now," Professor X said as Captain Stone deactivated the security systems. Professor X then began rewiring the security panel and trying to reboot the system to its original settings, but it was taking longer than expected. The security system powered down as the paralysis fluid began to weaken and Cain began to wake up. "Charles," Captain Stone said as he saw Cain Marco wake up. Professor Xavier worked faster on fixing the security panel as Cain Marco broke free of his chains. "System reinitialized," Professor Xavier said as Cain quickly fell back asleep and the security systems rebooted. "All right, stand down," Stone told his men. Stone saw that Professor X looked concerned. "Is there another problem?" "I'm afraid there is. This malfunction. It wasn't accidental," Professor Xavier said. "What are you saying?" Captain Stone asked. "It was sabotage," Professor Xavier said. "Line break XXXXX. Scott was waiting to pick up on the road to the Institute. Scott looked out to see the city of Bayville and saw Jean coming up in Duncan's car. "See you tomorrow, Duncan," Jean said as she got out. Scott raised an eyebrow as Duncan smirked and drove off. "Hi, so what's up?" Scott asked Jean, both not seeing Kurt and Kitty appear behind the car. "You, tell me," Jean asked as Kurt messed with Scott's car. "Well, Kitty said you wanted to meet me here," Scott said. "What?" "Kurt told me that you wanted to see me here," Jean said as Kitty phased through the car and grabbed Jean's phone and house keys. "Oh, I see what's going on," Scott said. "Well, it seems we got duped," Jean said. "You're being sneaky again, aren't you?" Scott asked. "Huh, what?" Jean asked, shocked. "You wanted to get me up here but blame it on someone else. You really are jealous of Karen," Scott said as Jean looked at him. That is so not true," Jean said as she got in the car and huffed in annoyance. "Take me home, you egomaniac." "Fine, but hey," Scott said as he tried to start the car but it didn't start. "Oh, I get it now, lure me out here, and then conveniently have car trouble. Ha boy, that's original," Jean said. "Whoa, hey, this was not my idea," Scott said as he tried to figure out what was going on and how to get back to the mansion. Speaking of the mansion, people walked up to the door and Evan opened it to reveal a large and awesome party. "Welcome to Party Central," Evan said as Risty and her friend Weber walked in to see an awesome party. "Whoa, this place rocks," Weber said. "I told you this place is awesome," Risty said as they walked in. "Come on, I'll show you around." Students from Bayville High were partying with their friends and even the new recruits of the X-Men were joining in the festivities. "There's drinks in the cooler, munchies on the table. And please, don't break anything," Evan said. Kurt was eating a sandwich and Kitty walked up the speakers and started blasting some dance music. Risty and Weber were walking through the mansion. "I've only been here once, but I think this hallway leads us to the library," Risty said as they walked through the mansion. Weber then spotted an open door. "Hey, weird elevator, where's that go?" Weber asked. Oh, you know what, I bet that goes to where they have that big computer that Rogue was telling me about," Risty said. Did someone say big computer?" Weber asked, excited. They walked in the elevator and went down a few floors until they were on the floor of Cerebro and the main computer that held the X-Men database and controlled the mansion's systems. "Whoa, now this is one cool basement," Risty said as they saw a door with a palm scanner. "Electronic lock, it's got to be behind this door," Weber said as he got out a small handheld computer. "You can hack this?" Risty asked. "It's a computer, they're all the same," Weber said as he was able to hack open the door. "Whoa, I take that back, this is awesome," Weber said as he saw the computer. Weber walked up to the computer and saw a headset. He immediately then began to rewire the computer and Cerebro headset. "This is beyond cutting edge, but by reconfiguring the headgear to accept me as the primary user, I think I can get full access," Weber said as he activated the computer, and it recognized him as the user. "It worked. Suppose they have any games on there?" Risty asked. "Oh, I hope so," Weber said as he searched the computer. It then brought up the files on all the X-Men. "Who are those people?" Risty asked. "I don't know, game characters maybe?" Weber said. "I could sure use them for my computer class assignment. I don't suppose you could download that file?" Risty asked as Weber got to work. "No problem, I'll burn you a disk," Weber said as he copied all the mansion systems into a DVD. "Here you go, now leave me alone," Arcade needs to play, Weber said as he began to mess with the danger room systems. Risty then walked back upstairs with a smirk on her face. Line break XXXXX. Jean and Scott called a tow truck to bring Scott's car and to give them a ride to the mansion. With Naruto, he was riding back to the mansion. He forgot some books he needed for his assignment. He drove into the mansion grounds and heard loud music coming from the mansion. Oh no, please don't let it be a party, Naruto said. He drove up to the front door and saw it was a party. Naruto walked in to see the mansion was a wreck. Furniture were flipped over, the walls were a mess and the mansion looked like crap. Oh, Professor Xavier is so going to kill me, Naruto said. You got that right, Kit, Kurama said with a snicker but then felt something. Kit, there's someone in the mansion. Yeah, no duh, there are a whole bunch of people in the mansion, Naruto said. No, I mean, there's someone in Cerebro, Kurama said. What? Professor Xavier is still gone. No one should be in Cerebro, Naruto said as he thought for a second. Thanks for the heads up, Naruto said as he walked through the crowd to his room to get his outfit. He then took the elevator down to the lower levels. He stepped out to see that everything seemed normal. Who could be in Cerebro? This section of the mansion should be locked up, Naruto said as he walked by. Meanwhile with Rogue, she was watching the party and cringed at how out of control it was getting. She then heard a beep and looked at her X-Man wrist communicator. It was going off, which meant there was a problem. She quickly grabbed Kitty, Evan and Kurt and headed downstairs. They arrived outside the danger room to hear an alarm going off and noise coming from inside. See, someone started up the danger room. I can't even get the door open, Rogue told them. I'll just shut it down from inside, Kurt said as he teleported inside. Risty was walking through the lower levels of the mansion and quickly hid behind a wall. Naruto walked around the corner and noticed that nothing seemed odd. Arcade was messing with the danger room but saw on the cameras that Naruto was walking through the hallway. Oh, a new character, alright, let's see what he's got, Arcade said as he activated some of the security drones in the hallway. Naruto stopped walking as he heard something. Risty froze up and saw that the hallway's security drones were activated. That can't be good, Naruto said as the drones opened fire. Naruto rolled to the side and fired an energy blast at the first drone as more came up. Naruto bent the metal on the wall and floor to make a small cover as the drones kept blasting at Naruto. Okay, something is seriously wrong with the mansion's security systems, Naruto shouted. Less talking and more blasting, Kit, Kurama told him. Naruto stood up from the cover and blasted 3 drones with an energy blast but more came to replace them. Naruto took cover as he then fired a lightning blast at the drones which caused them to short-circuit and explode. He destroyed all of them but more were coming. Alright, that's it, Naruto said as he charged up his energy and unleashed a huge gravity wave at the drones, destroying them and destroying part of the hallway and sent Risty flying into the wall. Naruto stood up and huffed in relaxation that the drones were dealt with. He then felt something hit his foot and saw a CD. What's this? Naruto asked as he heard something from the danger room. Naruto pocketed the CD and ran off. Risty stood up and glared at him and ran. Naruto ran through the halls until he came to the danger room and saw Kitty, Evan and Rogue standing outside with a worried look. Guys, what are you doing? Naruto asked as they turned and were shocked to see him here. Naruto, I thought you were at the library? Rogue asked. I was but I forgot some books, so I came back and saw the party. But more importantly something's wrong with the mansion's security system. I just got attacked by some drones, Naruto said. Maybe whatever is causing the system to malfunction started in the danger room, Evan said. Maybe, Naruto said as he didn't see Kurt. Where's Kurt? He's inside, let me check, Kitty said as she phased through and gasped to see Kurt lying on the ground in pain. Kurt's been hit. Alright, let's get him out, Naruto said as Kitty phased them through to see lasers flying around, buzzsaws and traps going off and the training drones coming online. Oh, finally, more characters. This game was getting really lame, Arcade said, as he watched over everything. Keep moving! Naruto shouted as he ran to avoid the laser beam. Evan ran to the side and ducked as a giant buzzsaw almost took his head off. He then fired some spikes at the exposed joints, causing the buzzsaw to explode. Evan kept running as he made his way over to Kurt, shooting down some more flying buzzsaws. Rogue jumped and rolled as giant spiked balls were launched at her. She then ran over to Kurt and tried to wake him up. Kurt, wake up! Rogue yelled. Then Arcade had more turrets come out of the wall. Whoa, heavy duty, let's move it! Evan yelled as they ran. Naruto then flew by and froze the turrets in ice. He flew around the danger room, dodging laser blasts, and used his ice powers to freeze the turrets in place, and to ice up the rest of the room to prevent any more surprises from coming out of the wall. Naruto saw Kitty dodging some laser blasts and phasing through some walls that were put up, but another came up by surprise and she hit the wall face first and got knocked out. Naruto flew down to check on her as Rogue and Evan brought Kurt over. "She's out cold," Naruto said. Then part of the room began to change as the outer circle lowered deeper into the ground. Then 2 large metal balls came out of the walls and fell on the tracks. They rolled towards the X-Men coming from front and back. "That's it," Naruto said as he supercharged his energy blast and blew one to pieces and then used his magnetic powers on the other to stop and crush it. Kurt then woke up and teleported the 5 out of the danger room. "Bummer!" Arcade shouted as he saw they got away. "I let them get away. Where are you, on the next lever?" Arcade asked as an alert was triggered and an alarm went off. "System has been compromised. Initiating DEFCON 4, the computer said. "DEFCON 4? I like the sound of that," Arcade said. Scott and Jean finally arrived at the institute, and saw the cars parked outside and heard the loud music and knew it was a party. "They're throwing a party," Scott said. "Oh, they are so busted," Jean said. "So, it seems that certain ex-children had plotted to get rid of us." "Yeah, sorry for accusing you," Scott said. "Me too, Jean was cut off as they saw the mansion go into lockdown mode. Steel shutters and gates appeared at every door and window, completely locking everyone in and out and preventing anyone from getting in. Then the courtyard fountain statue rose out of the ground as an alarm went off. The statue opened up to reveal laser turrets that opened fired at Scott and Jean. Jean and Scott ran to the woods by the mansion as they ducked and dodged laser blasts. "I've never seen anything like this," Scott yelled as he took off his glasses and reached into his backpack for his visor. Jean and Scott managed to hide from the turrets, and quickly changed into their uniforms and ran to the mansion. Then the turrets picked up their movement and activated. Scott and Jean dodged the attacks as Scott blasted a turret, and Jean used her telekinesis to crush one. "We'll have to try getting in through the launch bay," Scott said as Jean nodded. They ran to the cliffs by the mansion that led to the launch bay as a turret fired missiles at them. The missiles hit ground behind them as Jean and Scott jumped off the cliff. Jean grabbed Scott and used her powers to lower them in front of the launch bay door. Scott shot a full-powered optic blast and blasted open the launch bay gate. Jean then levitated them in as a security drone was activated and set its sights on Jean and Scott. Scott dodged to the side and blasted its legs, but the drone then activated its mobile mode and used treads to chase after Scott. Jean used her telekinesis powers to block the laser blasts, and Scott blasted the drone. Scott and Jean continued further into the launch bay until they made it to one of the hallways of the mansion. As they left, they didn't notice as a figure left through the open launch bay. Arcade was looking over the monitors and managed to find Naruto, Rogue, Kitty, Evan, and Kurt. "Aha, there you are." Arcade said he saw Naruto lead the group and used his powers to deflect laser beams. "Oh, DEFCON 4 definitely opened this game up. Let's see you get out of Arcade's corridor." Naruto led the others through the corridors as more security drones came online, but were quickly destroyed by Naruto, Evan and Kitty. Then flamethrowers came out of and ignited. Flames were launched at the X-Men, but Naruto used his powers to redirect the flames back at the flamethrowers and melted them until they were melted. Then more security drones activated in the hall as they appeared from both sides. "Kurt, teleport us out," Naruto said as Kurt nodded and teleported them away. Jean and Scott entered one of the monitor rooms as the security drones targeted them. Scott blasted the 2 drones as Jean flew to one of the security consoles. "Who's doing this?" Jean yelled. "It's like the whole place is locked down for an invasion." Scott yelled as Jean tried to access the security systems but was denied access. "Damn, I'm shut out. All of the security control has been rerouted to one room, Cerebro," Jean told Scott. Scott then accessed one of the monitors to get video feed of Cerebro, and saw some kid inside. "Who is that?" Jean asked. "No idea. I think he's one of Kitty's friends," Scott said as Kurt teleported them into the room. "Yeah, he likes to call himself Arcade. He's a computer game nut," Kitty said as Jean crossed her arms. "Obviously a party guest," Jean said. Yeah, but I don't know how he got into Cerebro," Kitty said. "We'll worry about that later, and give out punishments accordingly. Our main priority is to get him out," Naruto said. Arcade managed to hack one of the mobile surveillance drones, and had it look around for the characters and eventually found them. "Whoa, you're looking at me," That is so cool, he's a little feedback hello wave, Arcade said. He's seen us! Kurt shouted as the room began to short-circuit and electricity shot out from the computers. The X-Men groaned in pain as Naruto used his powers to redirect the lightning to his hands so he could absorb the energy. Everybody, out! Naruto shouted as he gave them the chance to leave. Scott and Evan blasted the computers in the room as they left, to shut them off. As soon as Naruto stepped out of the room, he shot out the electricity back into the room and destroyed the main computer. He then zapped the small mobile drone. Rogue, Nightcrawler, take him out! Naruto shouted as they nodded and Kurt teleported her away. Man, these players are good, Arcade said as Kurt and Rogue teleported behind him. You don't know how good, Rogue said as she touched Arcade, zapped his energy and he passed out. Line break XXXXX. After Rogue knocked out Arcade, the party was over. The guests were leaving in their cars as Naruto had the new recruits help clean up. Kitty, Evan and Kurt were outside, watching their friends leave. Thanks guys, great party! They heard as the last of the party guests left. Yeah, too bad we missed it, Evan said. They ate every last crumb of food. While we were fighting for our lives, Kurt said. Yeah, and now we have to clean up after them, Kitty said as they walked in. Jean, Scott and Naruto were talking to Weber who was sitting on the couch. They were angry with him that he walked into their computer and hacked it as well. Oh, don't be mad guys, I'm sorry, Weber said. You want to tell us what you were doing in there? Scott asked. I couldn't resist. Such an awesome mainframe, man. That game ruled, Weber said. Game? Jean asked. Yeah, and those players rocked. They had these really cool powers and wait, are you tell us that? He knows nothing more. He believes it was all a computer game, Professor Xavier telepathically told them. Mr. Weber, a taxi is waiting outside to take you home, Professor Xavier said as Weber stood up, but Naruto grabbed Weber's backpack that held his computer that he used to hack the X-Men mainframe. Hey, that's my computer, Weber said. Think of it as a punishment for hacking into ours. Now you don't get yours. Seriously, dude, get a different hobby, get a girl. And if you ever do anything like that again, the cops will know about your hacking adventures, Naruto warned Weber, who gulped nervously. Weber left and got in the taxi and went home while Professor Xavier was deep in thought. I'm sorry, Professor, I accept the blame, Scott told Professor Xavier. I'd say there's plenty of blame going around, even extending to a mystery guest, Professor Xavier said. What you mean, Arcade? Jean asked. No, someone else, someone who orchestrated all of this including my trip away, just to gain access to the mansion, Professor Xavier said. And I think I know why, Naruto said as he pulled out the CD he found in the hallway. What is it? Rogue asked as she took it. It's a copy of Cerebro's database. Every student here, blueprints of the mansion, security systems, everything about us was on this disk, Naruto said. Where did you find it? Professor Xavier said. In the hallway after I fought off some security drones. My guess is that whoever orchestrated all of this used Arcade to hack into our systems and burn a copy of the database. Luckily, something must have gone wrong and I found it, Naruto said. Who would want a copy of the database and who could sneak in? Scott asked. I think I may know. When I entered the mansion, I felt 2 energy signatures in the lower parts of the mansion. One of Arcade but the other felt familiar, Naruto said. How familiar? Professor Xavier asked. Very, and after thinking about it, it was Mystique, Naruto said. Are you sure? Jean asked. It's the only thing that makes sense. She must have survived the battle on Asteroid M, but her powers have grown, which is why her energy signature was different, Naruto said as Professor Xavier thought for a second. What are you thinking, Professor? Scott asked. That we got lucky that Naruto managed to find this before Mystique was able to leave with it. We'll have to tighten the mansion's security systems from now on. She must have done this for a reason, and something tells me that her plans for us are not yet done, Professor Xavier said as the storm was beginning to brew. After the party at the mansion and Arcade's hacking into the Cerebro, Professor Xavier kept a closer watch over the mansion and the security systems. Everything else returned to normal. Or, as normal as it was around the mansion. Naruto kept on training and was getting better and better with his powers, and his relationship with Rogue was growing as well. Now today was a normal day as the X-Men were at school. Naruto was in his history class while Kurt and Evan were in their science class with Mr. McCoy. Kurt and the rest of the class were paying attention, while Evan was just zoning Mr. McCoy out and not caring. Evan was playing with an eraser and 4 tacks as he stabbed the tacks into the eraser and made a mini skateboard. Evan smirked as he saw Kurt. He lined up the eraser skateboard and pushed it forward. As it skated across the desk, up some books and hit Kurt in the ear. Pay attention, this is interesting, Kurt told him. Yeah, riveting, Evan said as he placed his head on the desk. Now, there are stable molecules such as water, and then there are your unstable molecules like potassium metal. Unstable molecules have weak atomic bonds and break up easily, kind of like the defensive line on our football team, Mr. McCoy joked as the students chuckled. Yo teach, can I have the bathroom pass? Evan asked. Don't get lost, the best part is yet to come, Mr. McCoy said as he tossed the key to Evan and Evan laughed. Okay, let's see some fireworks, Mr. McCoy said as he put on his goggles and turned on the heat of his Bunsen burner, and heated up the liquid in a beaker. He then placed a cube of potassium metal in the beaker, causing it to dissolve and flare up as the students were amazed. Intense, huh? You should see it in the dark, Mr. McCoy said as he went to the window to pull the shades down and saw Evan leave school to go skating with his friends, and Mr. McCoy just shook his head. So, where were we? Mr. McCoy asked as he grabbed his stomach in pain and grabbed his desk for support, and knocked off some beakers and test tubes by mistake as the students wondered what was going on. Go ahead and read chapter 4, I'll be back in a while, Mr. McCoy said as he walked out of the room in a hurry and ran to the bathroom. Hank McCoy grunted and groaned in pain as he turned the faucet on and splashed some water on his face, for, in the sleep of death, what dreams may come and, arg, we have shuffled off as mortal coil, arghh, must give us pause, there's, the respect that makes calamity, of so long life, argh. McCoy shouted as he tore the sink from out of the wall and threw it across the bathroom. Line break XXXXX. The bell rang as students were heading to their next class, and if you walked near the science wing you would be greeted with the sight of a destroyed bathroom and Principal Kelly putting up caution tape. Principal Kelly, who did this? Naruto asked. I don't know yet, Naruto, but I intend to find out, Principal Kelly said. It looks trashed. Why would someone trash a bathroom? Naruto asked. Well, whoever did this must have done it for a reason, and was either very strong or very angry, Principal Kelly said as Naruto walked to his next class and Kurt and Kitty walked by and Kurt told her who he thought did it. McCoy? Are you crazy? He wouldn't do anything like that, Kitty said. I'm serious, you should have seen him in chemistry. He was totally losing it, and no one has seen him around since, Kurt said. Kurt, he's the coolest teacher we got around here, and the nicest. Unlike Mrs. Hawkins in here, massive geometry tests on Friday and I am so not ready, bye, Kitty said as she left for class and Kurt looked at the destroyed bathroom. School was soon let out but Evan was still gone, and ditched the whole day to skate with his friends. They skated through the park near the outdoor theater that would be used sometimes for summer plays by the schools. Evan then heard some noise and stopped. Evan walked to the outside theater and saw Mr. McCoy reciting some lines from a poem. Mr. McCoy? Evan asked as McCoy turned to him. If thou speaketh false, upon thy next shall he hang alive. Till famine cling the. McCoy shouted as Evan backed away, a bit scared. If this is about cutting class, I'm sorry, seriously teach, I'm not trying to play you, you got my attention now, Evan said. Rarg. McCoy shouted as he punched the wall behind Evan, leaving some cracks. Mr. McCoy, it's me, Evan. Evan said as Hank was able to calm down a bit and regain control. Ugh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, Mr. McCoy said as he backed away. You going to be okay? Evan asked. Yes, I'll see you tomorrow, Evan, Mr. McCoy said as Evan skated away. After Evan finished skating with his friends, he headed back to the institute. He skated up to the front door and saw a package that was addressed to Kitty. He picked it up and walked inside to get changed for a danger room session. But Evan was really late. The others were already in the danger room, going through a simulation training. The danger room had set up a holographic rock terrain, and the X-Men traversed it to get to the platform that would win them the simulation. Naruto ran in front and saw the platform but also heard a whirring sound and saw impact orbs fly towards them as the X-Men took cover, simulating an actual fight. Cyclops blasted one as Naruto blasted two more. Clock's running. Let's go, Naruto said as the X-Men ran to the platform. Cyclops and Maelstrom took point, blasting through the orbs. Jean used her telekinetic powers to create a shield for herself. Nightcrawler was able to avoid them as Kitty let the orbs phase through her. Nightcrawler kept dodging as he saw the platform in view and teleported to it, but didn't activate the switch until everyone got on. Rogue dove forward and threw a throwing disc, which destroyed an orb but got hit in the back by another. Come on, we're running out of time. Nightcrawler shouted as Naruto saw Rogue go down and picked her up bridal style as Cyclops provided cover. Come on! It's all or none! The others shouted as Naruto used his powers to fly him, Rogue and Cyclops to the platform, but just before he got there, the buzzer went off signaling the end of the simulation. The X-Men groaned in annoyance that they lost the simulation. Time's up, Storm said from her perch as she floated down to the X-Men and the holograms powered down and Naruto put Rogue down. Nice rescue, Maelstrom. Good cover, Cyclops, and Nightcrawler. Good restraint on now throwing that lever until everyone was there. Impressive teamwork today. But we failed, Cyclops said. Yeah, Spike was supposed to have my back, Rogue said as they heard the danger room door open and Evan skated in, suited up. Evan saw that everyone was glaring at him. Am I late? Evan asked. You part of the team or what? Rogue got powered because of you. Way to go, Evan. Yeah, now we have to do it again. Tomorrow, Evan heard them say as they left the danger room. Sorry, I was caught up with stuff. I forgot my watch and... You're making a habit of this, Evan, Storm said, interrupting him. Nobody can count on you anymore, Storm said as she left. Kitty walked into the kitchen and saw a package addressed to her. Oh cool, it's here, Kitty said as she opened it. Okay, so be honest, do you like it? Kitty asked as she walked into the living room and asked Naruto and Scott. Naruto and Scott saw some weird pyramid/square hat on her head. Very unique, Scott said. Well, it's supposed to stimulate brain power, Kitty said. Oh, I got ya, still stressing on that geometry test, aren't you? Naruto asked. Hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. Oh, I think I feel my head tingling, Kitty said as Naruto chuckled. Line break XXXXX. The next day came as the X-Men went to school. Evan was walking down the hall, still pretty bummed that he forgot the training session and let the team down. He turned the corner and bumped into Mr. McCoy. Hey, just the guy I was looking for, Mr. McCoy said as he pat Evan on the shoulder. I'll be in class today, I promise, Evan said, still a bit freaked out about what he saw Mr. McCoy do yesterday. It's not that, I just want to apologize about what happened at the amphitheater, McCoy said. You do? Evan asked. You caught me at a bad time. I like to go there to kind of get my head together. I suppose I get a little entranced by the whole Shakespeare thing, McCoy said. Hey, it's okay. I understand, Evan said. I know you do, Evan. You're a bright kid. You have a lot of potential. More than you know. See there, McCoy said as he led Evan to the glass trophy case in the hall. You played here at Bayville? Evan asked. 3 years, would have been 4, but I just goofed off as a freshman. It wasn't until I became part of a team that I truly realized my potential. Pick your friends wisely, Evan. They shape us in many ways. Oh, and about skipping class, memorize this little Shakespeare passage and we'll forget it. Fair enough? McCoy asked as Evan nodded. Great, now you better get to class, McCoy said as he left to teach gym. Evan was still curious about what happened with Mr. McCoy, so he stuck around and watched Mr. McCoy's gym class. Evan was watching as Mr. McCoy was instructing an indoor hockey class, and then Evan saw Mr. McCoy begin to groan in pain. Mr. McCoy turned around and groaned in pain, and one of the students lost control of her skates and was skating to Mr. McCoy. Mr. McCoy then turned with a growl and grabbed her. But before things could get out of hand, Evan ran in. Hey, Teach, nice catch. Bet you didn't see that one coming, Evan said as Mr. McCoy calmed down as Jean skated by. Gee, Mr. McCoy seemed really mad, the student said. No, you just caught him by surprise, Jean said as they rejoined the rest of the class. You all right? Evan asked Mr. McCoy. Yeah, I'm fine. Guess I'm still a little jumpy, Mr. McCoy said as Jean looked at Evan. After school was done, the X-Men returned to the mansion. Naruto was working on some homework in the living room, with Rogue and Hunter sleeping on the floor next to them. Did you get the answer to number 9? Rogue asked as Naruto looked over his sheet. Yeah, it's... Naruto was cut off when he heard the mansion's front door bell go off. Huh, who could be here at this hour? Naruto asked as he stood up and walked to the door. Naruto opened it to see Mr. McCoy. Mr. McCoy, what are you doing here? Hello, Naruto. I'm here to see Professor Xavier, Mr. McCoy said. Naruto then led Mr. McCoy to Professor Xavier's study as the two requested some privacy to talk. You reached out to me when I was young. Ha, I realize now I should have listened, Mr. McCoy said to Professor Xavier. I can't control it anymore, Professor, not by myself. I need your help. Tell me, Hank, how have you been feeling? Professor Xavier asked. It's like I got an animal inside me, a beast, and it's tearing me to pieces, Mr. McCoy said. But you've been able to suppress it for so long. How? Professor Xavier asked. With the serum I created, but it's not working anymore. Please, you have to help me. It's not working anymore, Mr. McCoy said to Professor Xavier, desperate for help. All right, I'll see what I can do, Professor Xavier said as Mr. McCoy sat down in a chair. Professor Xavier then touched Mr. McCoy on the head and entered his mind. Professor Xavier saw McCoy's mind and heard the growling of an animal, then turned and saw a wild beast charge right at him, which ended the mind connection abruptly. What did you see? Mr. McCoy asked. I'm sorry, Hank, there's nothing I can do for you, Professor Xavier said. No, don't say that, I'm too dangerous to be trusted, Mr. McCoy said. I agree, which may mean you may need to make certain sacrifices until you got this under control, Professor Xavier told him. You don't understand, teaching is my life. I'm nothing without it, Mr. McCoy said. This mutation, it's a natural part of you, the only way to suppress it is with your own strength of will, Professor Xavier said. I've tried, Mr. McCoy said, but you stopped when you started depending on the serum. You have to reach further within, it's the only way, Professor Xavier told him. I'm just worn out, I can't fight it anymore, Mr. McCoy said. After his meeting with Professor Xavier, Mr. McCoy returned to the school to work in the school's science lab to create a stronger serum to control his mutation. He diligently worked on the serum, and when he thought he created a strong enough batch, he tested it on himself, but when he swallowed it, he screamed in pain. Principal Kelly, who had stayed late at the school to work on some papers and files, heard a scream. Principal Kelly walked through the halls to the science lab where he thought he heard the yell. He looked inside to see that place was a mess. The tables were flipped and the shelves were destroyed. He then saw a wild blue beast roar in the door window. The beast then opened the door and ran after Principal Kelly. Principal Kelly ran through a door and closed it behind him. But the beast banged and smashed at the door. Principal Kelly then pulled the fire alarm and the beast ran away. Line break XXXXX. Back at the X-Men mansion, they were all suited up and in the main computer room as the latest news footage about the Beast of Bayville was being broadcasted, and Principal Kelly found Mr. McCoy's lab coat in the lab. Based on sightings and the evidence of damage, it's clear he's heading north, Logan said as he looked at the computer map of Bayville that also showed all the recent sightings or activity of the beast. Let's head him off, and remember, we don't want him hurt, Professor Xavier said as they left in the X-Van. The X-Men split up into teams with Jean and Shadowcat starting in the Bayville scrapyard. They walked into the scrapyard and saw large footprints in the ground. These tracks are huge. They must be his, Jean said as they heard a roar. They stood up ready to fight and saw the beast near some old cars. It then jumped away. I'll track him, call the others, Shadowcat said as she followed the beast through the scrapyard. Wolverine, we've sighted him in the scrapyard, Jean said on the communicator. On our way, Wolverine said to Jean as he then contacted Naruto. Maelstrom, they've sighted him in the scrapyard. On it, I'll head him off, Maelstrom said as he flew over to the scrapyard. Shadowcat ran through the scrapyard but lost sight of the beast. She looked around but couldn't see him. Then the beast dropped down next to her and roared. It tried to tackle her but she phased right through him. It turned around and jumped at her but the beast was hit with an old car and flew through the air into the fence. Shadowcat saw Jean float right next to her. The beast roared as it threw the old car back at Jean, but Jean used her powers to stop the car in the air. The beast then jumped and charged at Jean and Shadowcat, but Logan then tackled him in the air and the two tumbled on the ground. The beast then threw Logan off and roared, then ran away. I'll go after him, stay together, Logan said as he chased after the beast. Storm, Maelstrom, he's still heading north, Jean said. We got him, Storm said. Where could he be going? Shadowcat asked as Evan thought for a moment. To get his head together, Evan said, as he ran and Jean and Shadowcat followed. Storm, Nightcrawler and Rogue were in the city and had found the beast trail. They followed him in the alley but moved out of the way as some rubble fell to the ground. They looked up and saw the beast on the side of the building. The beast dropped down and raised its claw to strike, but Storm used her powers to make a wind tornado and send him up to the roof. I'm on it, Nightcrawler said as he teleported to the roof and ready to fight but saw the beast was gone. He looked around and walked to the edge of the roof and saw the beast hanging there. The beast roared as Nightcrawler jumped back in fright. The beast then jumped back up to the roof and tried to pounce on Nightcrawler, but Maelstrom flew by and tackled him through the roof and into the warehouse. Nightcrawler jumped through the roof and saw Maelstrom and the beast grapple as the beast tossed Maelstrom in the air. Maelstrom flipped in the air and landed on a crate and blasted the beast, but the beast dodged and kept running. Cyclops then ran into the warehouse and saw the beast land on a crate. Cyclops and Maelstrom then blasted him with energy blasts and sent him flying through the wall of the warehouse. Maelstrom ran up and saw the beast get up and run away. "He's on the move," Maelstrom said as he followed. Spike had arrived at the amphitheater in the park and saw that no one was around, so he decided to look around. He walked toward the theater and looked around. "Mr. McCoy," Spike called out as he then heard a growl behind him. He turned around and saw the beast land right in front of him. "This isn't you, Teach. You don't want to do this. You got to fight this." The beast then charged at Evan, but was then sent flying back through the air and pinned up against the theater wall. Spike turned to see Jean, and Shadowcat arrived as Jean used her telekinesis to keep the beast restrained. The beast growled out as it tried to move, and Jean was struggling. "I can't keep it up for much longer," Jean said as Maelstrom then floated down next to her and used his gravity powers to help Jean keep him in place. Spike then got an idea and walked forward. "Show his eyes and grieve his heart." Evan began to recite the Shakespeare line Mr. McCoy gave him as the others arrived. "Evan, don't!" Storm yelled as she landed next to Maelstrom. "Come like shadows, so do part, sleep shall neither night nor day. Hang upon his penthouse lid, he shall live a man forbid. All his nights, 9 times 9 shall he dwindle peak and pine." Evan said as Nightcrawler teleported next to Evan with Professor Xavier. Professor Xavier then went up to the beast and touched his head. "Hank, listen to me. You're still in there. You know what's happening to you, so take control. You're stronger than the beast, so don't give up," Professor Xavier said telepathically. "Though his part cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest toss." Evan shouted, "Line break XXXXX." The next morning, the X-Men minus Professor Xavier and Evan were in the kitchen having breakfast and watching the news on the Beast of Bayville. After a night of terror, local teacher Hank McCoy's whereabouts remain unknown, but until he's found, police have vowed to continue their search, the news reporter said. Back with Professor Xavier and Evan, they were in the medical wing with the new Hank McCoy. "I still look like a monster," McCoy said as he looked himself in the mirror, still seeing the beast, but with clothes on. "But you're now in the one place where that doesn't matter," Professor Xavier said. "I can still feel it though, inside," Hank said. "And you probably always will," Professor Xavier said. "The worst part is, the very thing I feared most has happened. My teaching days are over now that I look like this," Hank said. "Not so, Teach, the professor can hook you up with an image inducer like Kurtz," Evan said. "To look like whom?" "Hank McCoy. He's a wanted fugitive," Hank said. "But you can be anybody," Evan said. "With a beast inside, trying to claw its way out?" "I just can't risk it," Hank said. "What you need, Hank, are students who know your secrets, who have secrets of their own, and who need a man of your compassion to teach them," Professor Xavier said as Hank smiled and they walked out to the kitchen. "Everyone, may I have your attention? Please say hello to the Institute's newest faculty member," Professor Xavier said as Mr. McCoy walked out. "Welcome, Mr. McCoy," Naruto said. "Thank you, Naruto, but from here on in I'm not just Mr. McCoy, call me Beast," Hank said. Line break XXXXX adrift on Angel's Wings. With Mr. McCoy, aka Beast, joining the X-Men, things got more interesting at the mansion. The X-Men had a new member and the new recruits got a new teacher. Not that it helped keep them in line. Beside that, the year was coming to an end as winter had come and snow had piled on, making a winter wonderland at the mansion. Scott was in Hawaii with his brother Alex, having some brotherly fun while everyone else was in the mansion. Mr. McCoy and Jean were outside watching the new recruits have some fun while Naruto was in the living room with Rogue and Evan watching TV. Naruto was skipping through channels and found his way to the news station, which was covering the hurricane in Hawaii and the latest story of 2 lost boys, Alex and Scott. "Evan, get Jean, I'll get Professor Xavier," Naruto said as he ran to see Professor Xavier and Storm, who were also watching the news. "Storm, prep the X-Jet," Professor Xavier said as he, Storm, Jean and Naruto left for Hawaii. The Blackbird flew through the sky in stealth mode all the way to Hawaii. As they got closer, the weather began to get worse and worse, as heavy rain came down. Howling wind bashed against the jet and thunder and lightning filled the sky. Professor Xavier was piloting the Blackbird while Storm was in the co-pilot seat, listening in on some of the radio chatter. The rescue chopper went down. No sign of Scott or Alex, Storm said. We're closing in on its last coordinates, Professor Xavier said as Jean looked out the window and saw tornadoes in the distance. Wait, what are those tornadoes? Jean asked. Funnel clouds, they shouldn't be a problem, unless they touch down on the water, Storm said as she continued listening to the radio. Naruto, see if you can get a read on Scott's or Alex's energy signature, Professor Xavier said as Naruto nodded. Naruto closed his eyes and then opened them again to activate his fox eyes ability. Naruto looked out the window of the X-jet and couldn't get a clear read because of the intense weather. He did see a small glow in the distance that could be Alex and Scott. There, I've got an energy signature in that direction, Maelstrom said as Professor Xavier flew in that direction, and as they drew close, 2 blips came up on the radar. I see them, Storm said. We better move quickly, Professor Xavier, as he brought the plane closer. But then a funnel cloud touched down onto the ocean and became a large water tornado that sucked up Alex and Scott. Look, Naruto said as they saw Alex and Scott being sucked up by the water tornado. Storm then unbuckled her seat belt and Naruto opened the hatch, and the 2 floated out of the X-jet. They used their powers to push the water tornado back and free Alex and Scott. Jean, now, Naruto said, mentally as Jean saw Alex and Scott, and used her powers to bring them up to the X-jet. 3 more funnel clouds smashed into the large one that Naruto and Storm were keeping back, and Storm and Naruto kept on concentrating to keep the tornadoes from hitting the jet. Jean concentrated and slowly levitated Scott and Alex up to the jet. Not wanting to lose the connection, she had to do it slowly. Naruto saw Alex and Scott being levitated up to the jet, but also saw 5 more funnel clouds in the distance that were closing in on their position fast. Storm, can you hold it? Naruto shouted. I got this, go! Storm yelled as Naruto flew away, and the funnel clouds pressed towards the jet as Storm concentrated more, and Push used her powers to keep them at bay. Naruto flew to the back of the jet, and saw the 5 funnel clouds mix into one large water tornado that was heading in their direction, and if that hit land, it would do some serious damage. Naruto concentrated as he saw the large tornado coming towards the jet, so he decided to make his own. He concentrated and created his own mini tornado in his hands and concentrated to make it much larger and stronger. He then spun around and threw it at coming tornado, but it spun in the opposite direction than the other tornado. The large tornado flew through the air and on the ocean as it then slammed against the coming tornado, and the force caused the 2 to unravel and the tornado to disperse. Naruto saw Alex and Scott enter the jet and flew back as Storm flew back as well, and Professor Xavier flew away. Are they all right? Storm asked as Jean put a blanket over Scott and Alex. They're going to be fine, Jean said as Storm went back to her seat, and Professor Xavier put the jet on autopilot for a second while he activated the radio console. I'll contact search and rescue and let them know the boys are safe, Professor Xavier said. Well, that was some fun in paradise, Naruto joked as Professor Xavier chuckled. Professor Xavier flew the Blackbird back to the mansion after dropping off Alex at his parents' house. They got back to the mansion and got Scott to the medical wing and helped him recover, as the time at the mansion was going to get hectic with the holidays coming and most of the students going back home. The final days of the fall semester were coming to a close as the students would be leaving for their homes for the holidays. The X-Men were having a Christmas/holiday party where everyone was exchanging gifts and enjoying themselves before they would be gone for a while. Naruto would be heading back to California to spend the holidays with his family. He wouldn't miss his little sister's first Christmas. Professor Xavier and Mr. McCoy were staying around with Rogue and Scott. Jean was giving out necklaces to Kitty and some of the other girls as Christmas presents while Kurt was basking in the holiday spirit. Oh, it's beautiful, thank you, Jean, Kitty said as she liked her star necklace. You're welcome, Jean said as Jubilee and Amara opened their gifts as well. How cute, thank you so much, Jubilee said. I love it, you're so sweet, thanks, Amara said as Jubilee and Jean noticed Kurt sneak up behind Kitty holding a mistletoe and all chuckled. Kitty then saw the mistletoe above her head and Kurt holding it. Kurt, in your dreams, Kitty said as she pushed the mistletoe away. All in the holiday spirit, Kurt said as he puckered his lips. Kurt, knock it off, Kitty shouted as she ran and Kurt followed her. Come on, Kitty, just one kiss, please. Kurt shouted as he followed Kitty as Professor Xavier and Logan saw them. "Ah, to be young again," Professor Xavier said. "Yeah, glad that's over," Logan said. "You know, Logan, you're welcome to spend the holidays here with us," Professor Xavier said. Thanks. But I got some important things to catch up on," Logan said as he drank some coffee. Naruto and Scott were chatting near the fireplace, enjoying some hot chocolate as Scott left to get some more. Rogue, in her festive nice outfit, walked up to Naruto. "Man, it's going to get pretty lonely here now with everyone leaving," Rogue said to Naruto. "Yeah, I'm going to miss it. But it'll be nice to see my little sister again," Naruto said as he sipped some hot chocolate. "I just wonder how you'll be. It'll get pretty boring here." "Yeah, but it won't be so bad. Scott's sticking around and the professor and Mr. McCoy will be here," Rogue said as Naruto chuckled. "Maybe, but you'll find them not as fun as me," Naruto joked as Rogue chuckled. "You're probably right. Hey, I got you something. I figured that it may be early but everyone is exchanging gifts now. So," Rogue said as she revealed a present. "Oh wow, Rogue, thanks," Naruto said as he took it and smiled. "Go ahead, open it," Rogue said as Naruto opened it, and he saw it was a really cool black and orange jacket with a leaf design on the back. "This is great, thanks. I got you something as well," Naruto said as he went to the Christmas tree and got her gift. "Even though it's not Christmas, I think you should open it." Rogue opened it and smiled. It was a chain necklace with a large pendant with a fox designed on. "Click the button on the side," Naruto told her, and she did and chuckled at what she saw. It was a photo of her and Naruto goofing off when they were at the Bayville County Fair a few months back. Rogue chuckled as she remembered how much fun it was. "In case you ever get bored, you have that to remember the fun times," Naruto said. "Thanks," Rogue said as they heard some commotion as they saw Kurt chase Kitty to the couch. Kurt puckered and leaned in to kiss, but Kitty moved at the last second and he accidentally kissed Bobby on the cheek, causing both boys to gag and everyone else to laugh. The next morning, all the students left to head home to their families as Naruto smiled and waved goodbye and went home to his parents and to his little sister, looking forward to a great Christmas and some relaxing. Line break XXXXX African Storm. Christmas and the New Year were great relaxation time as all the X-Men returned home to their family to spend some quality time together. Naruto got to come home to his mom and dad and his little sister, and he couldn't have wished for a better holiday. After the break, the students returned to the manor and things got back to normal. Rogue told Naruto that she and Scott encountered Magneto in New York trying to recruit a mutant named Angel. Luckily the plan backfired and Angel was one of the good guys. The students all got back into their normal routines of heading to school and training at the mansion. Unfortunately, Evan got in trouble at lunch causing some destruction and food fightish action, and Principal Kelly was pissed and Ororo was going to kill him if he wasn't late to the private training session he had with her. Naruto was in the Danger Room Control Center, having volunteered to operate the controls for the training session. He glanced at the clock as Ororo paced back and forth, waiting for Evan. She paced back and forth, and could have swore that she was hearing voices, but that thought was pushed out of her head when Evan showed up. Sorry, I got held up at school," Evan said as he ran in uniform. "All right then, we're behind schedule. Let's begin," Ororo said as they walked to one section of the danger room. "Which one are we doing?" Evan asked. "Storm Catcher," Ororo said. "Naruto, activate the simulation." "On it," Naruto said as he activated the codes and the training simulation turned on to show a holographic corridor. "That? I'm not ready, and am I supposed to catch you?" Evan asked. "No, protect me, get me from here to there safely," Ororo said, pointing to the checkpoint. "I'm in your hands, Evan." They then started walking to the checkpoint, keeping watch for any traps or obstacles along the way. Then 3 mechanical claws came out of the walls and grabbed Storm and held her up in the air. "Auntie O!" Spike shouted as he created a large spike sword and cut the claws holding Storm up. "Yeah, Spike is in the house!" Spike shouted, but then the floor beneath Spike opened up and he fell in a hole. Spike saw he was trapped in the hole with no way out, so he made his own. He fired some spikes into the wall and used them to climb out. Then parts of the hole opened to reveal vents that began to pour in smoke, obscuring Spike's vision when he climbed out. "Storm, what's going on? Where are you?" Spike called out. "Focus, Evan, remember your training," Storm said. "We covered smoke screens just last week." "I can't remember what to do," Spike said. "Hurry, Evan, use your ears," Storm shouted. Spike then walked out of the smoke screen and saw Storm, but she was soon boxed in from the sides by walls that closed in on her. "Evan, get me out of here!" Storm shouted out, terrified. Spike tried blasting the box, but his spikes didn't penetrate. Storm pounded on the box, desperate to get out. She began to hyperventilate, and tried to use her powers to zap the box open, but when she did it shocked her back and the overload destroyed the box and ended the simulation. Storm then fell to her knees, trying to calm down. "I'm sorry, the smoke screen threw me," Evan said. "Just go, leave!" Ororo shouted. "Don't blame me for that box. I didn't activate it," Evan replied as he left. "I didn't plan on that," Storm said as she then looked at Naruto in the control room. "Naruto, what happened?" "I don't know, the system didn't respond for a few seconds. Are you alright?" Naruto asked. "Yes, I'm fine," Storm said as she left. Ororo walked out of the danger room to a pitch-black hallway. She flipped the light switch, but the lights didn't turn on. She then heard walking and saw an outline of some figure. "Evan? Are you down here?" Ororo called out. Ororo walked down the hall and could have sworn she heard some kind of chanting. She then saw a door open by itself. "Who's there?" Storm called out. She then heard a figure walk behind her but saw nothing. She heard more footsteps but saw nothing. She then ran down the hallway to the elevator to get the hell out as the chanting and whispers got louder and louder. "Come on!" Storm shouted as she pressed the elevator button and looked behind her. She then heard the door open, turned and shouted in surprise but saw it was Hank. "Sorry, I get that a lot these days," Hank said. Then the lights in the hallway turned back on as Naruto walked into the hallway. "Sorry about the lights. I rebooted the system to fix the danger room controls. It shut off the lights for a bit," Naruto said as he walked into the elevator, as Ororo seemed somewhat relieved but something else was still bothering her, and she exhaled in exhaustion. "Are you alright?" Hank asked. "I don't know, I just had a rough session with Evan, and I guess I'm a little jumpy," Ororo said. Seems the school hasn't had an easy time with Evan either. I found this in the trash," Hank said as he held up a crumbled piece of paper and Ororo read it. "Evan's progress report," Ororo said as she saw he wasn't doing any better. "And here I thought we were reaching him," Hank said. "Maybe he needs some extra reach," Naruto said. "I am having serious doubts that he is reachable," Ororo said. Line break XXXXX. Everyone was asleep in the X mansion as a strange mist seemed to cover all of Bayville. Everyone was fast asleep except for Storm, who was tossing and turning in her bed. "No, go away," Ororo said as she tossed and turned. The mist seeped in through her window, and seemed to gather around her as the same chanting and whispers she heard in the danger room continued. Then some human shadows appeared around her bed as they seemed to torment her. "No, stop, stay back, stay back!" Ororo shouted as she woke up and the mist and whispers disappeared. Then Logan, Naruto and Hunter ran into her room ready to fight. Logan had his claws out, Naruto ready to blast something, and Hunter sniffed around. Logan and Hunter went to the window and tried to sniff out whatever was in the room. Kitty then phased through the wall as Professor Xavier wheeled in. "Ororo, are you okay?" Kitty asked, worried. "Someone was in here," Ororo said. "Logan?" Professor Xavier said. "Nothing," Logan said as Hunter also shook his head. "No, check the security system, just in case," Professor Xavier said. "Right, back to bed, half pint. Everything's fine," Logan said as he left. Kitty then went back to her room and Naruto and Hunter went back to bed. But not before Naruto used his fox eyes quickly and could have sworn he saw some faint energy signature. He would have said something, but Professor Xavier and Ororo had a serious talk about Evan and now was not the right time. Everyone went back to bed to get some sleep. The following morning, things seemed to get back to normal, though Naruto was still confused about what he saw. "Kurama, any idea what I saw last night?" Naruto asked. "Not entirely sure, it seemed to be something mystical. I felt faint energy signatures similar to Churka but different," Kurama said. "Mystical? You mean magic? Don't you think that's a bit crazy?" Naruto asked. "I'm a nine-tailed Churka fox sealed inside a teenage mutant who was reborn from another reality. Crazy is normal for us," Kurama said. "Point," Naruto replied as he went to bed. Naruto woke up the next morning and got ready for school, putting on the jacket that Rogue gave him and walked to the kitchen, but then noticed some water seep into the hallway from Ororo's room. Kitty, Jean and the professor soon arrived as well. Seeing all the water that had spilled into the hallway and below, they opened the door to Ororo's room and saw she was in the bathroom. They tried knocking but she didn't answer, so Kitty phased through and saw Ororo sitting in the corner as the tub kept spilling water. Ororo, are you okay? What happened? Kitty asked as Ororo saw Kitty enter. Kitty, Ororo said as Kitty helped her up and exit the bathroom to see Professor Xavier, Jean and Naruto waiting outside, concerned. Ororo, are you alright? Professor Xavier asked. Is there anything we can do? Jean asked. No, thank you, I'll be fine, Ororo said as she left. Professor, Kitty said, getting his attention as Kitty pointed out one of the bathroom cabinet mirrors was smashed. Naruto then closed his eyes and activated Fox Eyes one more time and noticed the same faint energy signature left a trace, just like last night when Ororo swore that someone was in her room. What is it, Naruto? Professor Xavier asked, seeing he activated his powers. Something was in here, Naruto said as they all looked at him. Ororo talked to Evan, but he knew that he was heading back home and leaving the institute, and he didn't care. He had a serious attitude problem. He went to school to empty out his locker, and he had yet to break the news to any of the others yet. Naruto and Rogue were talking in the hallway on the way to Naruto's locker. Something must be going on with Ororo, the incident last night, and then this morning in the bathroom. Something weird is going on, Rogue said as Naruto opened his locker to change his books. Yeah, these past few days have been weird. First the training disaster with Evan, then the weird wig out with the mansion systems, and then the two incidents. This can't be a coincidence, Naruto said as he closed his locker and zipped up his bag, and he and Rogue walked to class. So do you really think someone is messing with her? Rogue asked. I'm not, there is definitely something messing with her. But to what it is, I can't say, Naruto said as Kitty then ran up to them in a hurry. Guys, did you hear about Evan? Kitty asked. No, what? Rogue asked. I just saw him emptying his locker. He's being sent back to his parents, Kitty said as Naruto and Rogue were surprised. Naruto knew that Ororo and Professor Xavier were going to deal with Evan, but he didn't think he would get sent back. Evan was emptying out his locker as Kurt was trying to talk to him. You're just giving up? Come on, let's go to the professor and ask for another chance, Kurt said. Why do you even care? It's not like we're friends or anything, Evan said as he walked away. Well, I thought we were, Kurt said. Evan walked to the doors of the school as Naruto, Rogue, Jean, Scott and Kitty ran up to him. Yo, Evan, what's up with this? Scott asked. Let's talk about it, maybe we can help, Jean said. Why does everybody keep stressing about me? It's really no big deal, Evan said as he threw his stuff in the trash and left. Scott moved to talk to him, but Naruto held him back. Not now, Scott. Nothing we say can change his mind. It'll be up to Ororo to try and talk to him. If not, only Evan can change this. But first he has to make his own choice, Naruto said as Scott reluctantly nodded. Line break XXXXX. Night soon came as everyone was fast asleep, except for Ororo as sleep eluded her. She stood up and walked over to the window to try and relax, as the cool night air washed over her. In her mind, she remembered old memories of her time in Africa where she used her power to help people of a local tribe and give plenty of rainfall, and incidentally having the village kick an old shaman out. She then heard some weird noise and looked down to see a horde of cobras. She gasped in fright and took off flying in the air and hovered above the mansion and tried to calm down. She then heard the front door to the mansion open and saw Evan skate away. Evan? Ororo said as she saw Evan skate towards the gate. She then flew down and ran after him. Evan, wait. Don't run away. She then heard some noise and turned around to see someone standing in front of her. Mirambo? Ororo said, surprised to see him there. You must turn back. It is not safe, Mirambo said. Where is Evan? What have you done? Ororo asked as she ran after Evan. No, the Hungan has come for you, Mirambo shouted. Ororo ran after Evan, but she got ambushed by the Hungan's men and got captured. Evan had hopped the gate, but saw the men take her away and ran back inside to warn the professor. Professor X gathered the X-Men and to get ready as Logan and Naruto ran ahead and followed Ororo's trail. Logan was on his bike while Naruto flew ahead and the trail led to the docks. Logan stopped his bike, took off his helmet and sniffed around and knew Ororo was close as Naruto landed next to him. We've tracked her to the docks, she's here somewhere, Maelstrom said. We're on our way, Professor Xavier said. Pardon me for not waiting, Wolverine said as he unsheathed his claws. He then walked around the docks, following the scent trail of someone who was following them. Naruto followed behind Logan, ready to blast anything that attacked them. Wolverine then snuck around a crate and grabbed the man that was stalking them and held him up against the crate and readied his claws to strike and Naruto ready to blast him. "Where is she, bub?" "I won't ask twice," Wolverine said. I tried to save her," Mirambo said. "From what?" Maelstrom asked. "The Hungan," Mirambo said. "I believe this man has answers we need," Professor Xavier said as he and the others had arrived. "Where is the Hungan holding her?" "Upon a crate aboard a ship, the New Yorker, but the Hungan has captured Ororo's spirit and his staff," Mirambo said. "Why?" Spike asked. "For turning the village against him 10 years ago. Now he will use her powers to rule over Africa," Mirambo said. "Team up, and let's move it," Wolverine said as they ran to the freighter. As they ran to the ship, Naruto and Logan heard the footsteps of other people, the Hungan's followers. "Watch your back," Maelstrom shouted as poison darts were shot through the air and at the X-Men, but Naruto used his powers to stop them in mid-air and send them back. More poison were shot out as Wolverine knocked them out of the air and Spike did the same thing. "Oh man! What are these guys, Ghost?" Spike shouted. Cyclops and Shadowcat ran past some crates as now swords were sent flying at them. "Their weapons are real enough," Cyclops said as he blasted some throwing swords out of the air. "We can stop them. Just got to move fast." Rogue shouted as the X-Men fought back. Wolverine, Spike and Maelstrom ran onto the ship as some of the Hungan's goons ran after them. Naruto then sent out a large wave of air that sent them flying away. "There!" Wolverine shouted as he spotted the crate. They opened it but Ororo was not inside. "You're too late," they heard as they looked up and saw the Hungan standing on top of the ship's cockpit with a glowing staff. Then a mind-controlled storm floated in the air and sent a blast of lightning at them that they rolled away from. "Storm!" Maelstrom shouted as she sent another bolt of lightning at them that Naruto absorbed. Storm then attacked the others as they ran for cover. Maelstrom rolled to the side as he saw Spike. "Spike, find the Hungan and destroy that staff. I'll keep their attention on me," Maelstrom said as Spike nodded. Maelstrom took off flying in the air as he evaded another bolt of lightning. "Sorry, Storm," Naruto said as he fired a wind cannon at Storm that sent her flying through the air. She then recovered and sent a bolt of lightning at Maelstrom, who deflected it with an energy blast. Spike ran to the center of the ship and heard the Hungan chanting, but the mist obscured his vision. He then remembered the training simulation with Storm and closed his eyes and concentrated. "You're toast, dude!" Spike shouted as he fired his spikes in one direction, and they managed to destroy the Hungan staff and free Ororo's spirit. Ororo then regained control over her body and glared at the Hungan, who tried to run away. "You want my powers, Hungan? Here's more than you can handle," she shouted as she sent him flying into a wind tunnel and then tornado that sent him and the mist flying far away. Ororo then felt weak and dropped from the sky as Evan ran over and caught her. "It's okay, Andy. "Oh, they're gone," Evan said. "They're all gone, they simply vanished in the mist," Professor Xavier said. "Their leader is gone and so are they," Naruto said as Ororo smiled at Evan. The next morning, Evan's mother had arrived, but instead of taking him home, Ororo and Professor Xavier were proud of Evan's performance saving Ororo, so they gave him another change, and the X-Men didn't lose one of their own. Line break XXXXX The Bayville Sirens Project Rebirth. With Ororo safe, things calmed down a bit, and Evan was allowed to stay at the institute as long as he tried to keep up with his schoolwork and his training. Naruto walked out of his room and was heading to the kitchen when he saw Jean and Amara storm out of the elevator with Scott following them. "But what did I do? Tell me?" Scott asked. "All right, you were being a guy," Jean shouted as Scott was confused. "Oh, I'm sorry," Scott said, not sure. Scott, I was trying to teach Magma how to use her powers when things go wrong, which did not include looking for a big, strong man to save you," Jean said as she stormed off to her room. "The nerve," Amara said as she walked into her room, leaving Scott in the hallway. "Smooth, dude," Naruto joked as he laughed and walked to the kitchen as Scott exhaled in exhaustion. All the students went to school as Naruto and Scott drove their cars and Tabitha drove one of the vans to carry the others to school. Kitty showed Amara her first period class, and it just so happened that Tabitha shared the class as well. "Amara," Tabitha said, happy to see her. "Hey Tabitha," Amara said. "So how's it going?" Tabitha asked. "Not so good, I sort of messed up my training this morning. Jean's been pushing me too fast, and even if I tell her I'm not ready You mean MS, yes, that's my real color?" Tabitha joked. "Believe me, I understand. Naruto's been working me really hard with training too. You know what we need? Some RR, a good mall crawl. How about you and me after school? We can catch up with our shallow teenage values, Tabitha said. That sounds like fun, Amara said. All right, Tabitha said. The school bell rang as the students exited the building and were either on their way to the buses, to their cars, or talking with friends. Naruto walked out of the building and heard some small explosions and students gasping or screaming in shock. Naruto saw the cause of the explosions and saw Tabitha and Amara drive past the school, and Tabitha used her powers to blow up the trash cans, which caused the explosion. Naruto then saw Jean angrily storm off from Scott and Duncan with Scott's key and decided not to get in her way. She had this handled, and she did. She was able to get Tabitha and Amara to return to the institute before anything bad happened. Naruto was sitting at the kitchen table eating a sandwich while Scott was eating some chips. Jean was talking to Amara near the window as the news came on the television. The capture of the notorious carjackers was due to the thanks of the work of a few good Samaritans, who disappeared just as the police arrived. The suspects are part of a larger car theft ring, operating in Bayville, the news reporter said as Scott and Naruto were watching the news. Listen, I think we ought to keep this to ourselves, Jean told Amara. Right, I mean, it's not like we'll be doing anything like that again, Amara said as they walked out of the kitchen as Scott tried to listen in on their conversation and accidentally fell out of his chair, causing Naruto to laugh. Over the next few days, Amara, Jean and Tabitha spent some more time together, hanging out at the mall, shopping and also patrolling and keeping the city safe. They also included Kitty and Rogue, and the five were quickly showing the people of the city that women were to be reckoned with under their alias of the Bayville Sirens, a femme fatale group that were cracking down on the crime of Bayville. Naruto was at his locker at school, changing some books for his next class when he heard some commotion down the hall and saw Jean, Amara, Tabitha, Kitty and Rogue walk down the hall with a grace, power and confidence that was in your face. They owned the hall. As they walked by, everyone was looking at them, especially the guys. They walked by Naruto as Rogue walked up to him, and traced her finger against his jawline and chin, with a confidence and allure that he never saw before. Rogue winked at him as Rogue left with the others, and Naruto was a bit love-struck for a few seconds and then quickly regained composure. He then met up with Kurt and walked to their next class, but Scott grabbed them by the shoulders. Hey, I didn't do it, Kurt shouted, but then calmed down as he saw it was Scott. Guys, cancel your plans for tonight. We got a little secret mission to take care of, Scott said. Oh, this will be fun, Naruto said. Line break XXXXX. Late at night, Naruto, Scott and Kurt were waiting outside the walls of the property of the Institute in Naruto's car as Kurt was lookout. He then saw the girls head to the garage and take one of the X vans. Blue boy to Tracker 1, can you read me? The pigeons are leaving the roost, Kurt said. Kurt, we're right here. Why are you talking like that? Naruto asked, in the driver's seat. Duck, they're coming this way, Kurt said as they all ducked in the car as the X-van left the mansion. All right, let's follow them, Naruto said as he started the car and drove after them. The X-van drove down the streets of Bayville as Jean looked at the passenger mirror and saw Naruto's Mustang in the distance. Ah, ladies, we got company, Jean said as they looked behind them and saw Naruto's car. Not for long, Tabitha said as she hit the gas and drove away. They made us, Scott said. They're getting away, Kurt said as Naruto shifted gears and sped up. Tabitha then drove down the streets as a train was passing on the tracks, and Jean got an idea. Kitty, phase us through, Jean said. I'm on it, Kitty said as she grabbed the car and concentrated. She focused as hard as she could as Tabitha kept driving and drove right through the train while Naruto hit the handbrake and drifted to a stop. Ah man, they're getting away, Scott said. Don't worry, I got them, Naruto said as he activated his fox eyes. The girls kept driving through the city and managed to find a place to get changed into their siren outfits, and were now looking for some crime to bust. Man, we got to find a better place to change, Rogue said. Relax, nobody will believe that toll booth guy, Tabitha said. They kept driving down the street when they witnessed the carjacking and immediately followed the carjackers to the warehouse district when they lost sight of him. Where'd he go? Rogue shouted. Weird, it's like he just vanished, Kitty said. Maybe not. Look over there, Jean said as they saw the garage of one of the warehouses close. They parked the car and snuck into the warehouse and saw it was a chop shop. A whole group of mechanics were stripping down the stolen cars for parts. It's a chop shop, they're tearing apart the stolen cars for parts, Tabitha said. Then this must be the base of the car theft ring, Jean said. Glad you could join the party, girls, they heard as they turned to see the man in charge with about 10 guys armed with pipes, chains or knives. Now, we've been expecting you. Ah man, it's a trap, Rogue said as all the mechanics grabbed weapons and surrounded the sirens. That is so weak, Kitty said. You see, you sirens have been slowing down our business. And the boys are getting a tad irritable about it, the leader said. Hey, didn't your mother teach you not to pick on girls? Amara asked. Yeah, too bad I never listened to her, the leader said. Well, guessed what, brain dead. She was right, and this is why, Tabitha said as the girls attacked. Using their skills from the combat training Logan put them through, they punched and knocked out the mechanics and thugs. Kitty phased through a guy and then kneed him in the guy. Jean used her telekinesis to send some tires flying at the thugs and knocking over containers of gasoline. Amara knocked out more thugs with kicks to the head as Rogue kept on fighting with one of the thugs accidentally making skin contact with her and passed out. Boom Boom then decided to make small booms and knock some of the thugs away, but it had the unfortunate effect of also lighting the gasoline and oil trails of the dismantled cars, starting a fire. With Naruto and the others, they got changed into their gear as Naruto was closing in on the girl's energy signature when Kurt spotted the smoke. Look! Over there! Kurt said. Got them, Naruto said as he drove up to the burning warehouse and saw the X-Van. It's them, Kurt, get us in, Scott said as Kurt teleported them in and they saw the fire but also saw the girls defeat the rest of the thugs. What are we waiting for? Let's get in there, Kurt said as Naruto held him back. No, let's let the girls handle this one, Naruto said as Scott nodded. The girls beat up all the thugs and were restraining them with chains when they saw the leader try and make a break for it. So Amara and Jean held their hands together as Kitty ran forward and was then lifted into the air. Kitty then grabbed the leader by the back and threw him in the trunk of one of the cars and Amara slammed it shut. They cheered as they helped retrain the others. Not seeing a small trail of gas lead up to the car, an ember from the fire hit the trail and immediately caught on fire, and it would have reached the car and exploded, but it was stopped in its track by a blast of ice. No one saw us do that, Naruto said. Come on, the girls got it covered, Scott said as Kurt teleported them out. Rogue and Amara grabbed fire extinguishers and put out the fire as the distant sound of police sirens drew closer. Girl power, don't you just love it? Tabitha said. All right, drop it. They heard as they saw a female police officer enter the warehouse with her gun out. The building is surrounded, there's no way out. But we're the good guys, or rather girls, Amara said as they all smiled. I know exactly who you are, vigilantes who take the law into your own hands. And you're under arrest, the officer said. Oh yeah? If you know who we are, you know to stay out of our way, Tabitha said, ready to fight, but Jean stopped her. No! We're not going to fight the police, Jean said. Smart girl, the officer said as she then looked around and saw all the thugs were restrained. Well, it seems you put an end to their little enterprise. Good work. Look, I'll probably lose my job for this, but I'm going to let you go. Really? Cool, Kitty said. But only if you promise to stop what you've been doing. And I mean now, either that or I take you in, the officer said as they nodded. She then pointed her flashlight at a staircase. That leads to a sub-basement, then it'll take you down to the city sewers. Now get going. You got it, and thanks, Jean said as the girls left. By the way, their boss is in the trunk, Kitty said as she walked down the stairs. The garage gate was then opened by the other officers who stormed in. Warehouse is clear, Chief. No sign of those vigilantes, the officer said. Well, we'll get them next time, the chief said as the female officer walked away. She walked out of the warehouse and into the alley as she then morphed into Mystique. The girls returned to the mansion and quietly went to their rooms. Jean went to the kitchen where she ran into Scott and the two had a nice talk. Rogue was walking out of the bathroom in her pajamas when Naruto walked out of his room to use the bathroom and saw Rogue. Hey Rogue, Naruto said. Hey Naruto, Rogue said. So, did you enjoy the girls' night out? Naruto asked as Rogue looked at him. Yeah, it was fun, Rogue said. I'm glad. You seem to be having fun, and I'm guessing the sirens are done for? Naruto asked. Yeah, it was fun while it lasted, Rogue said. Well, all good things come to an end. But I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. It showed me a different side of you, and I liked it, Naruto said as Rogue smirked and traced her finger under his chin like before. She's still around, Rogue said as she went to her room. Good night. Wow, Naruto said. Line break XXXXX. After the end of the sirens, Scott was able to repair his relationship with Jean and things got back to their normal groove. Logan went for one of his many road trips, so he designated Naruto and Hank to take over training of the new recruits. Speaking of Logan, he was riding his bike down a nice lonely road, driving through the forest of the Rocky Mountains. As Logan was riding down the road, he caught a scent, so he lifted his face shield and sniffed. He then unsheathed his claws and used them as a mirror and saw a assault helicopter following him. Logan then sped up and drove off the path and into the surrounding forests, going off-road while the chopper kept following him. He spotted us, the chopper pilot said. Alpha team, move! The leader said. Then 2 military Humvees followed Logan off-road as they were gaining on him. Then the 2 energy cannons on the Humvee's roof began to fire at Logan to force him in a certain direction and to clear any trees in the way. Logan then drove through a rock clearing that was too narrow for a car, and one of the Humvees got caught while the other had to go around the car. Logan saw the other Humvee following him, so he unsheathed his claws and slashed at a tree, causing it to fall and create a roadblock that the Humvee couldn't drive over. Logan then stopped his bike at the end of the path, which happened to also be at the end of a cliff, and jumped to his feet, ready to fight. He looked around, waiting to see soldiers burst from the trees, but another chopper hovered next to him, with its machine gun fixed on him. Hold it right there, Logan, a voice said as the chopper turned to show a SHIELD logo on the side. The chopper door opened to reveal Nick Fury, director of SHIELD, or should I say, Weapon X, Fury said as Logan growled. Fury then jumped from the chopper and landed in front of Logan. Actually, you're going by Wolverine now, aren't you? Fury, I just got one word for you. Goodbye, Logan said as he walked to his bike. Have it your way, Gunner. Target that bike, Fury said as the chopper moved and the gun was pointed right at the bike, causing Logan to growl in anger. Okay, Patch, what's this about? I don't work with SHIELD anymore, Logan said. Rebirth's been stolen, Fury said, causing Logan to go wide-eyed. Impossible. Rebirth was destroyed. Rogers and I made sure of that, Logan yelled as he grabbed Fury by the collar. It was a backup. SHIELD discovered it 17 years ago. Kind of a touchy subject, so we mothballed it under Lever 5 security, Fury said. PFTT, and still it got stolen, Logan said. Who did it? Unknown. Whoever it was managed to do this to a titanium steel door, Fury said as he showed Logan a picture of completely torn and destroyed steel door, as well as knock out SHIELD security with some kind of magnetic pulse. We're talking mutant here. Magneto, Logan said. Line break XXXXX. While Logan was hurrying back to the mansion, school has just got out at Bayville. Everyone was walking out of their classes and out of the school as Kurt, Naruto and Rogue were talking about the results they got on their history test. Naruto did pretty well. Kurt did alright while Rogue got a D-. Oh man, I totally tanked that history quiz. Why do we have to study World War II anyway? Rogue asked. I don't know. I always found history interesting, Naruto said as some jerk shoved past them. Clear the road, losers, the jerk said as Kurt and Naruto glared at him. I think the phrase you're looking for is pardon me, Rogue said. What was that, skunkhead? The jerk said as he turned around and got in Rogue's face as Naruto shoved him back and got in his face. If you know what's good for you, you'll back off, or you'll be in the hospital, Naruto warned him as he tightened his fist. Oh, you going to do something about that, Whiskers? The jerk yelled as Kurt tried to stop the fighting. Trust me, not a good idea, Kurt said as the jerk just grabbed Kurt's wrist and accidentally crushed his holowatch. What? You think you're tough? The jerk said as he crushed the holowatch and Kurt's holographic disguise shut off and he was Nightcrawler, AH. What the heck are you? Some kind of rat? Look who's talking, Rogue said. No way. No way. You're going to forget. You don't remember any of this. You're going to leave now, Jean said telepathically as she walked up to the guy, using her powers to mess with the guy's mind. Yeah, I'm going to leave, the guy said in a dazed state as he walked away. You okay, Kurt? Naruto asked. Yeah, growing up looking like this. I've heard it all before, Kurt said as he teleported away and the others felt bad for him, especially Naruto. He could relate. His childhood at Konoha was just as bad. Naruto drove home with Rogue while the other students were all doing homework or other activities and Logan was talking with Professor Xavier about what Fury had told him. Perhaps you should tell me exactly what Operation Rebirth was, Professor Xavier said. Early attempts at genetic engineering, crude but powerful. The idea was to create super soldiers for World War II, Logan said. A master race? Xavier asked. Nah, these were the good guys, they didn't mean it like that, Logan said. They never do at first, so tell me, what it ever used on anyone? Xavier asked. Yeah, Steve Rogers, Logan said as he remembered Captain America and told the professor of a time when Captain American was able to save a fellow soldier from a plane by taking it out with his shield. Sounds almost like you knew Rogers personally, Xavier said. I did. I was with the Canadian Special Forces. I met Captain America, Logan said. Really? I knew you were older than you looked, but World War II? Your regenerative powers are impressive. So is your memory, but I thought parts of your past were lost to you. Xavier asked. Yeah, well, it's pretty much right after that things get fuzzy, Logan said. Still though, your story puzzles me. If Rogers was indeed the famed Captain America, that would seem to indicate that the Rebirth Project was successful, Xavier pointed out. No, it destroyed him, and now it's in the hands of Magneto, Logan said as Xavier got worried. Naruto and Rogue were walking through the mansion and to their rooms when they saw the lights dim and a loud hum sound off through the mansion. Power surge? Rogue asked. No, Cerebro at full power, come on, Naruto said as they went to Cerebro to see what was going on. Professor Xavier was using Cerebro to do scans of the world for mutants, and in particular Magneto's mutant signature. During the scan, the professor did show that there was a now larger population of mutants in the world. Man, they're all over the place, Logan said, seeing all the mutant signatures around the world. The size of the population containing the X gene is increasing exponentially. It's becoming difficult to keep track of them, even with Cerebro's new enhancements, Xavier said. No way mutants are going to be under wraps for much longer, Logan said. Yes, I suspect that's what Magneto feels as well, which explains his recent activity, Professor Xavier said. So you found him yet? Logan asked. No, Magneto's cloaking technology has been keeping pace with Cerebro's enhancements. I have no idea where he is, Xavier said. Logan and the professor heard as they turned to see Rogue and Naruto snooping on them. Well, it seems Rogue has got something to say, Logan said. Come in, Rogue, Naruto, Xavier said as the two walked into Cerebro's chambers. You know, you could wait for a girl to volunteer, Rogue said. No time, spill it, Logan said. Remember when I touched old Buckethead in New York? I got a dose of his memories. They're kind of confused, but one is this big metal dome covered in rocks, Rogue said. Where? Logan asked. The Sahara Desert, Rogue said. Well, that about narrows it down to 3.5 million square miles. You couldn't maybe be a little more specific, could ya? Logan asked. I'm sure I could recognize some landmarks, Rogue said, hinting at wanting to go. You are not going along, Logan said. Then you ain't finding it. Besides, from what I can gather, no one can enter that place without the power of magnetism, Rogue said. Magnetism, that's me, Naruto said with a smirk as Logan growled and rubbed his head. Rogue and Naruto got suited up and left with Logan in one of the X-copters to the Sahara Desert. You don't think we should get the others involved with this? We could use some extra help, Rogue said. Please, we'll be fine, you and me. We can handle Magneto. We'll be a great team. They'll put us in the history books, Naruto joked. Big whoop, a team of two, Rogue said. A team of two, a team of two, a team of two, Logan heard as he remembered that phrase uttered when he worked with Captain American during World War II. Line break XXXXX, Logan flashback. A team of two, Logan's sergeant said as he and Captain American were in a plane heading to a POW camp in Poland for a mission. A team of two, specifically you two, Cap. I think you've met Logan, Canadian Special Forces. From what I hear, he is almost as tough as you are, which is a good thing, the sergeant said as Logan strapped on his pack. Mission parameters? Logan asked. You'll be liberating a POW camp in Poland, but for the safety of the prisoners, it'll have to be fast, real fast, the sergeant said. How fast is real fast? Logan asked. Put it this way, you don't get parachutes, the sergeant said as Cap and Logan were ready. The plane then flew down close to the POW camp and even smashed into one of the lookout towers, causing the German soldiers to run as the tower exploded. Captain American and Logan then jumped out of the plane and smashed through the roof of the headquarters at the POW camp. Captain American and Logan made quick work of the German soldiers and made their way through the rest of the camp. Captain American used his shield to block incoming machine gun fire from a tower while Logan used the distraction to relieve a German soldiers of his grenades and used them to destroy the tower. Captain American then broke down the door of one of the holding rooms, where the prisoners were afraid until one boy stepped forward. He walked up to Captain America as Captain America helped him up and signaled the others to follow as they ran out of the camp. Logan punched and kicked some German soldiers and helped Cap get the prisoners to the trucks for the exit. Then 3 Germans threw their grenades at the group as the little boy in Cap's arms saw. He then shot out his hands and the grenades floated up into the sky and exploded away from the group as Logan saw what he did. Then the Allied tanks and trucks broke through the surrounding fence and gate as the Allied soldiers secured the area and Cap and Logan got the POWs onto a truck to safety. As Logan helped the last of the people onto the truck, he looked at the boy. "What's your name, son?" Logan asked. "Eric Lencher, thank you for saving us," the boy said. Line break XXXXX. Logan was brought out of his flashback when Naruto spoke. "So Logan, why does Magneto want this rebirth project so badly?" Back in World War II he saw it in action with Captain America. He must have researched it afterward, Logan said. "There!" Rogue shouted, recognizing some landmarks from the memories she got from Magneto. "Head east past that ridge of rock," Rogue said as Logan did that. "So if rebirth made heroes like Captain America, why was he the only one?" Naruto asked. "Because greatness ain't supposed to come that easy. There was a price to pay. The procedure had a flaw in it for humans. Cellular breakdown. Captain America was dying," Logan said. "That's it, up ahead," Rogue said, pointing to the metal dome in the desert. "This is as far as we go by air. You two, prep the XTVs," Logan said as Naruto and Rogue went to the back of the copter and got the XTVs ready while Logan landed the chopper. Rogue strapped a time bomb and detonator on her belt while Naruto handed her a helmet, and the two got on one XTV with Rogue holding on to Naruto while Logan got on the other. "Can I ask what happened to the Rebirth Project? I mean, did they solve the problem?" Rogue asked. "They didn't get the chance. Captain America was determined not to let them put anyone else through what he suffered through. Cap and another guy sabotaged the Rebirth Project, permanently. But apparently there was a backup, and now Magneto has it," Logan said. "Not for long," Naruto said. "Good attitude, bub. Just don't drop that bomb," Logan said as he put his helmet on. "With that inspiring motivational speech, let's go," Rogue said as they drove out of the chopper and towards the metal dome. They drove on the sand dunes, up and down as their tires kicked up the sand and it filled into the air. They closed in on the metal dome as Rogue spoke. "I wonder how long before Magneto knows we're here?" Rogue asked as they heard a noise which was a missile that landed next to them and exploded. "I'd say about now," Logan said as they sped up to avoid the missile barrage that was closing in on them. Naruto used his powers to create a gravity shield around him and Logan so that the missiles would bounce off or hit the shield and not them. They were closing in on the dome as Naruto used his powers to create a sand road to the dome that stretched from a sand dune. They drove on the sand road as Naruto used his powers to open up the dome and let them in. They stopped their XTVs and took their helmets off to see the dome was mainly empty, except for some computers and the rebirth chamber in the center. Logan snuck behind a pillar and looked at the chamber, and saw the outline of someone inside. "Growl, someone's already inside it. Let's move," Logan said as he ran to the chamber but got kicked away by Sabretooth. "Nice of you to pay us a visit, Wolverine," Sabretooth said as Wolverine growled. "So this is your new litter box, huh, Sabretooth?" Wolverine said as he unsheathed his claws and then looked at Naruto and Rogue. "Destroy that chamber. I'll handle this," Logan said as he tackled Sabretooth to the ground. Naruto and Rogue ran to the rebirth chamber as Rogue took the timed explosive off of her belt as they got closer, but then 2 metal beams flew through the air and were heading towards Rogue and Naruto. Naruto used his magnetic to stop the metal beams in the air and crush them as Rogue kept on running to the machine but then got hit by another beam and pinned to a pillar. Naruto saw Rogue in trouble and ran to help but Rogue tossed him the bomb. "I'm fine, just blow the thing," Rogue said as Naruto grabbed the bomb and ran to the machine while creating an energy clone to help Rogue. Other beams and metal objects flew through the air towards Naruto but Naruto just used his powers to keep them away until he got to the control panel. "Hey, whoever you are? I suggest you get out of there. This thing is bad for your health," Naruto said as he placed the bomb on the rebirth control panel and turned on the timer for 5 seconds. "On the contrary," Naruto heard as he turned to see an old Magneto. He had changed, which is why Naruto didn't recognize his energy signal. "Magneto?" Naruto asked, shocked to see him like this. "This chamber is going to save my life," Magneto said to him. "What happened? Who did this to you?" Naruto asked. "No one. I'm an old man. My genetic enhancements have kept me alive until now. But this rebirthing chamber is my last chance to survive, Magneto said. But Logan said this thing is dangerous. It could kill you, Naruto told him. Only to humans, to us, it grants long life. By destroying those controls, you take away my only chance. Charles told me that you are a good man, different than myself. Was he right? Magneto asked as Naruto thought for a moment. Naruto, forget him. Just get on with it. Rogue shouted as she and the energy clone were evading the metal beams after them. Naruto thought as he was stuck with a hard dilemma. Sure, Magneto wasn't exactly a good guy. But to do this in cold blood? To kill an old man? Naruto's fought people before and they've died, but it wasn't like this. What are you waiting for, kid? Pull the pin! Wolverine shouted as Naruto's finger was on the pin of the detonator, but he couldn't pull it. The machine then activated as Naruto was blinded by a bright light that rendered Magneto unconscious as it reverted his body to its physical prime. Wolverine continued to fight Sabretooth as Naruto saw the process was over. So he ripped off the tubes to the chamber and broke the glass of the rebirth chamber and grabbed an unconscious Magneto. He then walked away from the chamber and pulled the pin on the bomb, activating it. He flew away as the rebirth project exploded and caused a much bigger explosion than he thought it would. The shockwave knocked Naruto and Magneto to the ground. Rogue ran over to help Naruto as Magneto regained conscious. He sat up and saw that the rebirth project was destroyed and looked at Naruto in anger. He then used his powers and grabbed all the wreckage as well as the south part of the dome and sent it all flying towards the X-Men. Logan got smacked away by a metal beam and rolled over to Naruto and Rogue. Rogue helped him up as they saw a sea of sharp metal objects shot at them. Naruto then raised his hand and his energy turned from blue to purple as he used his magnetic powers to stop the wave of metal. Naruto focused and pushed back against Magneto's wave of metal. Magneto pushed his powers to their limit, and kept on pushing the wave closer and closer to the X-Men as it moved inch by inch closer as Naruto was fully focused on pushing back. Naruto was no way near the level of magnetic mastery that Magneto was, but he was getting there. Naruto concentrated more and began to push back, but then saw Magneto send out a metal beam that wrapped around Rogue and restricted her while Logan was thrown up against a pillar by his metal skeleton. Naruto then saw Magneto float down as he put on his helmet. It seems I have you at my mercy, boy. You have grown more powerful, but thanks to that rebirthing chamber, I am at my peak and you have a long way to go before you reach my level. However, you spared my life, so I shall let you go, Magneto said as he released the wave of metal. Let Rogue and Logan go and opened up the metal dome to let them leave. There was a small boy in Poland who owed you that much, Magneto said to Logan as Logan smirked. The three left as they walked back to the X-Chopper. What small boy in Poland? Rogue asked, wondering what Magneto meant. It's a long story, Logan said as he then looked at Naruto. You all right there, kid? Logan asked. Yeah, I'm fine. While I'm not completely comfortable with how the situation turned out, I did what I thought was right, Naruto said. And Magneto's at his peak, Rogue said. True, but Magneto's at his peak while my powers will continue to grow. I'll just have to get stronger, Naruto said as Logan chuckled at Naruto's determination. We'll arrange for more training later, kid, Logan said. So, the mission's over, right? Naruto asked. Not quite, there's one more thing. Got to meet with an old friend, Logan said. Line break XXXXX Mesmero. After the rebirth incident with Magneto, Logan dropped off Rogue and Naruto back at the mansion, while he went somewhere secret. Rogue and Naruto ate dinner and cleaned up, then worked on finishing their homework. When Logan came back, he and Hank worked on upping Naruto's training to help him develop his new powers to their peak. He had his elemental powers of fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, ice and wood mastered, but he wanted to master now his gravity, magnetic and magma powers. He was also working on her energy construct powers, using his energy to form solid objects like kunai and shuriken. But Hank theorized that Naruto's energy constructs could go bigger. Naruto's was getting a handle on his magnetic powers and they were improving more and more, to the point where he is able to now manipulate multiple objects at the same time. Instead of focusing his attention on a certain object or thing, he has also been able to generate electromagnetic fields by combining his magnetic and lightning powers. He shut down the whole lower levels of the mansion, which Hank wasn't too happy about. A week had gone on at the mansion, nothing too extreme to talk about except a carnival that came through. The X-Men went and had some fun, played some games and ate some food, but Naruto had this nagging feeling in his head that something was off about the carnival. 2 days later, Naruto had woken up early to get some more training in on his gravity powers. He was working on increasing and decreasing his weight like he would an object to turn it as light as a feather or turn it into a missile. He was also working on compressing gravity at a singular point which would pretty much destroy everything at that point. Naruto got up and brushed his teeth and then walked down the hall to the elevator when he noticed Jin's bedroom door open. Jin was never up this early. Naruto knocked on the door. Jin? You up already? I'm impressed. Usually if we want to get you up earlier, I'd have to destroy the bed, Naruto said as he walked in and saw no one inside. Naruto looked around and saw the room was normal. Everything neat. The bed was made, the toy Jack-in-the-Box she won at the carnival was on her bed, and her backpack was still there so she didn't leave to study. Jin? Jin, you there? Naruto asked as he looked around. He then activated his fox eyes and saw that Jin's energy signature was mucked. It was only partially there. It seemed to be cloaked or something like that so he couldn't get a clear read. Naruto knew something was off so he went to see the professor. Naruto woke up the professor as the rest of the students began to wake up as well. After talking with Professor Xavier about what he saw, the professor had the students help look for any sign of Jin around the mansion, and tried to find clues of where she could have gone. While the rest of the students were trying to find where Jin could have gone, Naruto was with Scott and Professor Xavier in Jin's room and was telling them what he saw when he walked in. So I walked in and saw Jin wasn't here. The bathroom was empty and all her stuff was still here. Her bed was made and when I tried to track her energy scan, it was partially blocked so I couldn't see where it went, Naruto said as Professor Xavier thought for a moment, and then saw the Jack-in-the-Box on the bed. And this Jack-in-the-Box? I wonder if it has any significance? Professor Xavier asked. That? It's nothing, just some toy Jin won at the carnival 2 days ago, Scott said as Hank walked in. We've combed the mansion. I'm afraid there's no sign of her, Hank said. Then sometime during the night, Jin simply vanished, Professor Xavier said. Hank went down to the computer to try and widen the search for Jin. Hank, how's your progress? Professor Xavier asked.